Exactly what? Second.
All right, do you accept the nomination?
Sure.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, all those in favor? Great. Congratulations. All you.
All right, next up then will be rest of the reorganization. So in your packets, you have organizational charts. You can find them. I guess first business would be vice chair. Nate has been in the past. And seeing, unless anybody else raises their hand, I would make the motion for Nate to continue as the vice chair.
Second.
Okay, any other nominations? All right, all in favor?
Yeah.
Nate, you're punished with us. Okay. We can make changes to this, or if everybody's comfortable with the current roles, what's the wish of the board?
I'd like to move off of negotiations.
Negotiations. Okay, does anybody, so Gigi is also listing negotiations. Do we have anybody else? This is going to be for this upcoming year. It's just going to be for the teacher contract. So we have somebody that will step in to fill that spot. And Gigi, are you comfortable? Negotiations. Look for another board member to work on that.
I can take a stab at it.
Okay. Is everybody comfortable with that? Okay, so Andy, we're going to move you to negotiations with Gigi. That will get rolling actually probably in the next couple of months.
On our motion.
Let's make
Just
our
get through the
tweaks.
whole thing first.
As far as NBC, Andy and I've been doing NBC. We talked. Do you want me to continue with it?
Yeah, if you want to lead.
Okay,
This
that's
is
fine.
That way this year I can get more experience or time on that.
I can get sick for a couple of meetings if you want to.
Yeah.
get them.
That might be cool.
Okay. Is that rest of the board comfortable with that?
Yep.
Okay. Any other tweaks or changes that anybody wants to make? I look for a motion to approve the amended assignments for 22-23.
So move.
By Andy, seconded by Gigi. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that takes care of that. Next up, we haven't actually done the Pledge of Allegiance yet. That ended up a little bit further down, so why don't we go ahead and get that done? Well, please join me. The flag is in the back corner of the room. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have the minutes of June.
Yes, so there were, thank you, there were minutes prepared, and apparently, and Nate, did you notice, Nate somehow noticed that they were never brought before the board and approved.
Okay.
Even though they were prepared, they never made it, so.
Let's deal with, because in our packets, February 16th comes first. So let's take care of the minutes of February 16th. What's the wish of the board? I have a second?
Second.
All right, any changes? Favor? Okay.
One abstention.
One abstention. So that is the minutes of February 16th. The minutes of June 23rd. Can we push those to the next meeting? Because I
Didn't understand why they were.
have to think.
Do you remember the meeting?
I do not remember. the meeting.
Can I remind you?
Please.
This was the meeting at which the high school committee presented, it was sort of an emergency last minute meeting that we planned like the week before. Because the high school committee had suddenly come up with sort of a motion of the vote. An end of the sort of, and then the meeting was to hand it off to the school board.
Yes.
It was an hour-long meeting at which the committee was there with us. I don't think we were all there, but I think four of us were there, and then four of the committee was there. And it was discussion about this work that we had done presenting.
Seldon's amazing, correct?
No, I think it was non-true.
There was one that was in the gym, was that separate?
That was one of the
Yeah, it was not a presentation. It was sort of the last.
So let's push those for a meeting,
Okay.
if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for catching that, Nate. All right, now public comments. Anybody from the public have comments? Sir?
All right, first off, I want to know who makes the decisions on when you issue a call ask.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm a resident, I've been a resident of New Hampshire for forever. As far as North and Deerfield, I've been here 40 years. So, when you award a contract, first off, who decides who gets the contract? It's supposed to be a bid. Is that the school board?
Depends on the contract. And the dollar amount.
What?
So it depends on the dollar amount in the contract. But, so for citizens' comments, if you have comments you want to give to us, you can do that. If you want to be placed on the agenda, you need to send us the information you want us to review so that we all have an opportunity to go through it, then I'll schedule you to be involved in one of the meetings.
Well, I'll make some comments first.
Okay, so the comments are one direction in this case.
They're one direction, yeah.
Yeah, so
So anyway, I used to have the alarm contract in town here for the schools. And for some reason, I lost it after 20 years now. I don't understand why I lost it. So anyway, the contract states that you would notify me if you were going to delete the contract. No, I was never notified, so therefore, I'm not happy about that. The other thing is that the alarm monitoring used to charge the school $240 a year. The new people are now charging $540, yet it was never put out to bid. So I don't know how the new people got it. Basically, I'm not happy about that whole situation. So I want to address that. I want to find out who made the decisions. What are we going to do about it? And as far as this contract goes, it's still good, but the thing is that somebody's going to have to pay the cancellation fees. I don't like the idea of them having cancellation fees to start with. So it's an issue I want to address.
okay, we'll look into it. Additional comments? Mr. Whitmore?
Yes, Greg Whitmore, North Road. So I just wanted to talk about, kind of what I've learned over the last month. So I've had conversations and communications with hundreds of people around town in the last month. And, what I gathered, based upon, the voting we just had, Article 1, it sounds like what people are looking for is for that to be split. So people absolutely understand that this school needs major repairs. We all know that, and we all know that we're going to have to pay for it, and it's going to be a big bill. All right. So I think moving forward, if we're going to be putting this up to vote again next year, if you still want to be moving forward with school expansion, then split that. You have to have a prioritized list of repairs and make it extraordinarily clear to everybody in town, this is how we're going to approach it. This is, what we can do this year. Maybe we can push some other stuff off to next year and just kind of spread it out, because I'll tell you, that sticker shock, that hits people really hard. I mean, when they saw those totals on the ballot, it's crazy. We saw what the end result was. Articles 6 and 7 passed, and I tell you, I get so concerned about that term advisory. Even the House yesterday passed a resolution saying that masks cannot be deemed mandatory. We'll see what happens with that if it actually makes it all the way through. But this isn't a fringe thing anymore. It has incredible momentum behind it. All right. So I'm going to hold you to it. The will of the town says, Article 6 and 7, that you cannot impose masking on students anymore. The people have spoken, so we need to listen to the people. I also learned that people want more communication. Right? We need to have some sort of an open forum for actual discussion. If we need to set aside time during meetings, or if we need to have something separate, people want to be able to talk to you and they want you to talk back to them. Right? They want to have an actual conversation with you where they can bounce ideas off you. They want to know if they're taking the time to put material into emails that they're going to be read and they're going to be responded to in a timely fashion, right? This is how we generate ideas. I mean, I'm working on a pile of ideas. The stuff got voted down, we got to move forward, and I want to contribute to that path forward. So I'm putting together a document right now that I'm going to send to all the school board members. And I got some ideas that are a little bit out there, but some that are very much grounded in reality and stuff I think could really help contribute to the path forward at this point. Again, but people want open communication. It has to be there. That trust has to be there, that you're going to respond when they ask something of you. I'm going to be shifting my focus to high school choice over the next, I don't know, however long it takes. So I'm going to be presenting a lot of information to you for school comparisons between, the current choice and some real great, other options. So look out for that. But you'll be hearing a lot from me. Thank you.
Mr. Knoll, any comments?
Hi, I'm Bobby Ann. I live on Brown Road. Now that we know what the outcome was of Article 1, I always wondered, so in 2014, there was money set aside for paving for the teachers and everybody. 2014, the reasoning that I found out that it still hasn't been paved is because you can't get permission from somebody.
So for us
Can you
to,
get permission this year?
so for us to expend from those funds, the Conservation Commission has to approve of the plan, and when we approached them in the past, they want a full engineering workup done, and they continue to recommend permeable asphalt. Permeable asphalt in the Northeast fails very rapidly. And so to spend the money on the engineering will exceed the amount of money. The engineering will cost more than it will to actually pave the lot. We don't have enough funds in that account for engineering and paving. We also don't have enough funds in that account to do permeable asphalt. And it's also not good to put permeable asphalt down where it's going to fail.
Can the public contact the people? Because I swear, I have hundreds of people. I know you guys are doing your best, but if we set a fire under them to let them know, hey, we found that this doesn't work, to move it forward, because this is years. So let's get this thing done.
So to that extent, the amendment to the article was fairly clear and specific. It required the blessing from the Conservation Commission for us to touch that lot at the current.
Great. So the public, if we got all of us
If
together.
the public wants to
Went
talk
at
to the
them.
concept, well, I wouldn't say go at them, but
No,
I certainly, that is the current issue. We also, there isn't enough funds there to afford the engineering as well as paving. There was, when that fund was originally created, enough money there. The money was set aside to pave it, not to pave it and engineer it 7 years later.
Escalations and contingencies.
Escalations and contingencies.
so the longer we let it sit.
The worse, the more expensive. And it certainly was something the board has made multiple attempts to address years ago. But the stumbling block is the watershed management, the language of Conservation Commission, or the language was inserted at the from 20.
Could we amend that the next vote, how it's written?
That is a good question. I would need to,
Let's make another article.
I'd have to look into, we'd have to look more about the process for undoing that or changing that, and I can't answer that. Additional comments from the public? Right, so agenda review, we have 4 consent items. We are going to add another conversation about the calendar. Okay. that he was going to bring forward. Tweets from the board. Okay. Next up, we do have to go into a non-public. Look for a motion under RSA 9183(2), small letter C. Moved by Jeff Kelly, seconded by Pete Oxnard. Roll call. Andy.
Aye.
Eugene. Jeff. So, yes. All right, so it is 6:18. We're going to go to non-public, and actually I'm going to ask the board and the people involved in non-public. We're just going to go to another room so that everybody else can stay here.
So I just want to let the folks know, I'm going to put them, you explained it, but it wasn't recording at the time. So
Okay.
the folks that are on the screen here, I'm going to put them into the lobby. And I'm going to stop recording right now
Yes,
and put them in the lobby.
And the board is still going to leave.
and lock the meeting.
Okay, so
All right.
as soon as the non-public is done, we can go back into the next. So stop recording right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It is 6:39. We've come out of non-public. I will look for a motion to seal the minutes of non-public.
I move to seal the minutes.
Moved by Gigi, seconded by
Yeah.
Jeff Kelly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much. And thank you folks for waiting while we took care of that. Next up. Consent items. We are going to actually do those after our second non-public.
Yep, we have one that you can do in public and then the others will
Go
wait. The
Oh.
public is the Dale invoices.
So everybody have a copy, or can everybody dig out their Dale invoices? So I look for a motion to approve the high school transportation for the month of February, 2 buses, 17 days, in the amount of $13,266.46.
So
Second.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Gigi. Any discussion? In favor?
Aye.
Okay. And look for a motion to approve the elementary transportation for February, 17 days, 6 buses at $35,113.50.
Second.
Moved by Jeff, seconded by Gigi. Additional discussion. In favor?
Aye.
Yes.
I'm wondering now that we're sort of back to normal and all the students are getting here and they're all getting here on time and we have the same number of buses each month, if you would consider having Amber go back to verifying these invoices for you and paying for them, as long as we're checking the days and everything stays the same.
Is the board comfortable with that? Go ahead.
We had, as I recall, a volunteer who signed on to drive buses temporarily. Is that, what's up with that situation?
Mrs. Whitty, is our office staff member still driving the bus?
So I would be more comfortable lifting us reviewing these when we are. That way we know. Yes.
Little efforts have been to try to get people.
You won't know from an invoice whether you have
No, but it'll make us ask every single month.
it. Okay.
Is somebody reminding me now that she's in it?
Shortage of drivers.
Yes, we did email and remind her that it was a temporary.
Do we have any indication from volunteer on whether she'll stay on next year? Because I assume she'll finish this year.
I have not spoken to her. Have you?
I think she's hoping not to.
my concern would be that we start next year, just like we've started the past.
That's 5 years.
97, to be honest with you. And I can't think of one year where we weren't getting lit on fire because of transportation. At least
Once high school.
Something.
it was some sort of yellow bus.
Can we poke Kelly and remind her that we exist? And
Still
we're trying to
driver.
avoid August problem now.
So let's do that instead. That backfired, huh?
Whatever you'd like, I will do.
All right.
Okay.
The other 3 consent items can be dealt with.
Yes.
Okay. That now brings us to review of correspondence. And I believe we had only one with some discussion regarding the election results. Responded to them and told them that their email was received and would be placed in the minutes, and was it? We all got that email?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else that anybody saw that I missed? I believe so. Okay. Let's go ahead and attach that one to the minutes. Does anybody have any commentary regarding that email?
No, I was gonna say not exactly, but I hope, or at some point, I didn't see it on the agenda and I should have brought this up for dinner, but are we going to go, and we should be discussing, I think the results of the vote should be sort of worked in some way, so.
Yeah.
Is that in the agenda?
Informational, are you talking about the ballot?
Maybe that's.
Yeah, I do, informational, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because I have something that's kind of.
sure, yep, that was one of my informationals.
And obviously, we'll talk about Articles 1 and 2. Building. Okay, so we'll start the conversation there.
Thank you.
All right.
Sorry, Andy, that's.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, so I'm the online guy, so when I go correspondence for this meeting, there's a Cub Scout, and a couple of others in there.
That request is.
On the agenda.
That is item G.
Okay.
For the Cub Scouts.
Good.
All right. So I did ask Patty to put facility use back on the agenda. We have placed some restrictions on building usage throughout the pandemic. It seems like the world has accepted that the pandemic is passed beyond us now. We want to return to pre-pandemic building usage. So that is the question I'm throwing out to the board. If that is the board's decision, I'd look for a motion.
And these would basically remove the visitor limitations we have, as well as
It
the.
would
public
be
ability to use the building.
2018 here at DCS.
Yeah, just kind of.
I would make a motion that we return to the pre-pandemic facility use policy and remove restrictions.
Second.
Motion second, additional discussion. Nate?
If something comes up that warrants a change, then we going to meet in an emergency kind of fashion like we did 2 years ago, like today.
It was 2 years ago yesterday, I
2 days
believe.
ago Yesterday.
It was 2 years ago yesterday. Seems like
We're the same day I was sworn in.
Yes.
I think it was something like that. It's so fun.
Andy and Jeff's first day as school board members, they got to participate in a pandemic. It was a lot of fun.
But if that, so we would need to do something.
We usually deal with it if we. Well, 10 year days are ahead of us. Any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. So that brings us to the next one. The Cub Scouts, well, I guess technically it's a moot point in that case, right? So Cub Scouts did send us an email asking to start using DCS again. They had been for a number of years, and it was during the pandemic when that stopped. Is there any objections to the Cub Scouts using the building?
Absolutely not, there never has been.
Okay, so that being said,
We'll get back to that
yeah,
on your behalf.
let them know if you don't mind, or if you would express to them that the board has lifted any restrictions, and the Cub Scouts are more than welcome to schedule use into the building again.
Will do.
Any follow-up from regarding the after school?
The clubhouse?
Oh, in Richmond?
Yeah.
Yep, we have, it's gonna be starting the second week in April, I believe. We've been slowly getting we have to get all of our volunteers fingerprinted, so we've been slowly getting the results of that back. Mrs. Mossgrover has, I think, 7 or 8 interested volunteers, so
Awesome.
yeah, there will be some Minecraft going on, some Dungeons and Dragons. A new parent is going to come to our K-3 group. We got some coding things happening, so it'll be great.
Awesome. All right,
Just taking advantage of technology.
yeah, yeah.
But pretty slow.
But do
I was gonna see my.
Yeah, I brought an extension cord this time.
you need an adapter to adapt into the extension cord?
No, I got
Good.
universal, plug and play. Trying to keep it light.
You wouldn't have survived 100 years ago, just
Oh,
on
yeah.
your tablet.
No, I would have. I would have had multiple tablets and multiple chisels,
Doing it right. All right, so facility use taken care of, and health costs taken care of. Transportation contract extension.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
I thought you skipped one, but you did.
I know, I'm waiting, so excited.
So we had discussed, taking advantage of a one-year extension on, the Dale contract, so I had reached out to them. This year did not seem the year that we would want to go out for a 5-year bid for transportation and try to solicit any bids whatsoever when there's a nationwide bus shortage and there's an inability to provide transportation on any provider's behalf. So we did reach out to Dale and we got the, 22-23 extension. It came in at 4.5%. I did look at your numbers. So your budget for high school, I think you put in 3 buses, but I think there's 3 buses in the budget, but they quoted you for 2 buses. And then I looked at the DCS buses as well, and that would be an overall savings from what you budgeted for, compared to the default of $109,148.
And how much, did they give you an annual amount for the high school bus? If we were just
Yes.
to calculate that back in.
I think so. The high school buses,
2 high schools, 100.
would have been 140,
So it'd be
and then it would be, yeah,
Okay.
6, yeah,
Can I see that for a
a
second?
little bit over 6.
So just to kind of give the board a,
Should be in your drive too.
it was,
Yeah.
but just so it becomes public as well.
Yeah.
So the current cost per bus with 180 days is $371, $790, $385. 4.5% increase considering fuel has gone up considerably and inflation and everything else. Probably not.
Do
I don't see this in the driver, you should just make it in there.
Oh, it should have been.
That's it.
No?
It wasn't. I think it actually, I think it was in the last meetings.
That's okay.
Historically, how much is Dale increased? Is it in the contract? I can't recall. So like after the contract, when the term expires,
So we were on a multi-year contract.
Yeah.
And the pricing was set out for so it was a 5-year contract and I feel in my memory, it was about a 3% or so increase
every year.
annually.
Okay.
With the end of that contract and the default budget we're looking at for next year, that still adds 3%, is that what you're saying?
Their pricing was a 4.5% increase. You had budgeted, a 12% increase.
In the proposed budget?
Yes,
Which
but your
is-
default budget was still, higher. Sorry.
Lower
So
than
you are
the
saving
double-digit, but
$109,000
higher than
what the default
Budget
budget was.
carries more buses than
You had, yes,
we've been using.
yes.
So the default budget carries
That's the
3 high school
Yeah,
buses
and
and
7, I think, 7,
Okay.
yeah. So you have an excess of 109,000. This year.
So we need transportation next year. We need transportation every year. So with that being said, knowing current circumstances in the world, look for a motion to approve the 1-year extension from Dale.
So
Second. Jeff, second by Nate. Jeff, go ahead.
I think that, numerous reasons, we were hoping that the SAU would get behind us and work with us on this. That didn't happen, but we're gonna be, so we bought ourselves a year, but I think we really need to figure out what we're gonna do for a long-term plan here. We've talked about a bus terminal and buying our own buses.
Leasing and
In leasing them. And, it's not a pressing issue until it is, and then it's scrambling, we don't have enough buses and everyone's angry. So I guess the question I have is, this contract extension, is great, it's a set year, but we really should be working, I think, district wide with the other boards trying to figure out the solution to this.
When, I'm gonna ask Nate, but maybe you can.
I
answer the
was
question.
going to suggest that we put it on the agenda for the full SAU board meeting in April. And I think, I don't know that it was because the districts didn't want to get together. I think it with everything going on, like looking into transportation was just too much for every board to handle. But now I think if we have this conversation again with the full board, and you may want to suggest that a transportation committee is formed. Maybe it's a board member for each district, or maybe it's the executive board that takes it on to start doing that research, because you're right, you've bought yourself a year, but there's a lot of work to be done, and it should be, you should get started right away.
We had that, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, it feels like in some ways such a mixed message. We're so mad at you and we're gonna extend the year, you know, it's.
That's the proverbial barrel we've been placed over.
Yeah, I recognize that, just, guess I just a comment to add on to like why I think it should become a.
There is, maybe a light in the tunnel that Nate and I are uncovering right now somewhere else that we can't talk about, but it may help.
So this contract calls for how many buses compared to how many are running right now?
There are 6 elementary and 2 high school. in
Is
this.
that what we're running right now?
That's our current.
Yes.
So the same number of buses would next year cost us 109 less than.
Because
In the
it's
default budget.
budgeted for an additional,
Yeah.
it's budgeted for more buses in the current. In a normal set of circumstances, we would want 10 buses. Right. 7 for the elementary, 3 for the high school.
But to be clear, we have a temporary driver and we still have a lot of parents driving kids. So
We are not building a bus this year.
just making it clear, right, for all the
This is
listening
only-
and
yeah,
watching
this is
people.
Only
and
working
stuff.
because of
Right.
what we have in place, yes.
More questions, what are kindergarten signups? Are we close to having some sort of a number for next year anticipated?
Yeah, I have an update in my,
Principal's report.
For expected students next year?
Let's get impact some of the other conversations.
What's that?
The number of students coming in.
Yes.
So the motion is currently on the table. Any additional discussion? All in favor? Aye.
You'll get that on the agenda for us.
Yes, I made a note. You're welcome.
Who's, well, I guess we have to elect a new chair for the CU board as well. All right, we have the Deerfield Master Plan.
So I think Zach received an email, forwarded it with me, that you might remember Cam. He was working with us when we did the master plan a few years back. They are updating chapters of that plan, so not the entire plan, but they're reaching out to the school board, the Conservation Commission, Heritage Commission, Board of Adjustment, Parks and Rec, hoping to get 1 volunteer from each of those boards. So Cam has asked us to get a volunteer from the board to work on this revision of chapters. He didn't indicate what chapters they're looking at, but he's hoping to have a volunteer from the school board.
That revision of chapter.
He did not give us that information.
It should be an update as well to the town CIP, which is, should be a living document that is perpetual. Deerfield has not always been good about it. So I suspect it will go back to all the boards after that group gets started for the individual CIP updates as well.
What's entailed with the volunteering?
He didn't say. Just ask for.
So do we have any volunteers?
I think it'd be like interesting, it'd be good for us to probably know what the parameters of that look like. It's 30 hours a week for 3 months of,
Right.
you know, extrapolating information. As
Additional.
opposed to,
Additional details and agenda.
yeah,
We have an audience member that may be able to weigh in if the board would like to hear what that audience member's thoughts are, which would be abnormal. But Mr. Rhodes, do you have input?
I do, if you want to hear it.
Would the board like to hear Mr. Rhodes' input?
Yes.
Yes.
Seeing nods. Okay, Mr. Rhodes, we typically don't, but go ahead.
I think it's 6 meetings between now and the end of the year. Most is possible. guaranteed if possible.
Sounds like a half a dozen meetings. So I mean, at a minimum, I think we do need to address it one way or another. So if there isn't a volunteer, I will volunteer just because.
I do.
All right. Well, I certainly will let Mr. Oxnard take the helm on that.
Would you like me to get back to Cam?
If you would, let him know and ask him to
Contact
set
info?
Nate a-
I'll tag it if you,
Yeah, that'd be great.
like, you're like, oh, I can't get back.
and we'll get a meeting scheduled.
Great.
All right, the calendar.
The staff received the approved calendar, and I think, when you send out the calendar and ask folks to look at it, and then all of a sudden it's approved and they realize they're starting school a little bit earlier than they had anticipated.
Did you staff on
They
the calendar?
did, in a very kind way, like, would it be possible to revisit this?
The staff approved their calendar.
So the staff asked to change their return time days to the 25th and the 26th instead of the 22nd and the 23rd. And that would put the first day for students at August 29th. And the last day would become June 16th, which is not unreasonable, I don't think. So we are in support of that if the board would consider.
What are we concerts first days?
Tonight, what do you mean? But they have less days than we do. Do you remember when Concord starts? Are they doing after Labor Day? Is that this year?
I do perpetually feel like the school year gets longer and longer, and I know it's the same number of hours, but it feels like it gets longer. every year.
16th is pretty standard that
I
week.
feel like when I was a young guy, I was in school much later.
You just said lad.
Yeah,
It's
Patty,
the
could you tell me-
appropriate month.
Could you tell me the dates again?
Yes, so it would move the staff to the 25th and the 26th and would push the first day for students to the 29th. So instead of coming in the Wednesday before on the 24th, they would come in on Monday, the 29th.
so seeing as our staff has unapproved the calendar, we asked them to review. What's the working board? And I say that jokingly, please express that to us.
Concord starts on the 31st.
Start later.
So this is pushing it back up.
3 days.
Those weird February vacations, day in school, staff development day on this one.
It's due on, I think, March 4th.
Yeah, March 14th, which is, you're back in school for
Yeah,
a full
full
week before.
Yeah, that was just
Yeah, it's
funky.
because it's the second Tuesday, which is the election day. That's what the day we always have the SAE workshop day.
I figured that's why we did it,
Yeah.
but everyone was scratching their head and asking why.
That's why. Yeah, some of our schools have voting in the schools, so that's when we do our big workshop day every year.
The only other thing different from the calendar was in January. The whole SAU has the second off, which is that Monday because of how Christmas falls or how New Year's falls. Concord did not take that Monday off.
But that's not changed from this
Right.
proposal from
Right,
last time.
I'm just pointing out the only difference besides Concord start date would be that would be.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended calendar.
Second, Jeff, seconded by Nate. Additional discussion? Favor?
Aye.
Okay.
PTO update. Are you PTO updating us today?
I am, I can.
Are. Okay, what do we got?
So we've been doing a lot of fun stuff lately. For the month of March, it's National Nutrition Month. So we've never done this before. We decided we were going to try out some stuff, see if we could get some more healthy food in front of these kids and get some healthy information. We're lucky to have a mom who's a nutritionist in town, and she has been so helpful with the bulletin board by the cafeteria. It's adorable. They spin this little color wheel, and they choose if they're going to eat a green vegetable or a purple vegetable or fruit, and it's really cute. We've been doing tips of the day that Kristen's been providing in the announcements, and then I put on Facebook. We did a healthy snack already. They got cucumbers. I think it was pretty well received. I'm like, some people were like, wow, cucumbers, this is awesome. Can I have more? So that's good. This week, they're going to see the spirit sticks that I showed you all. Those should go home in the Friday folders. Just, it goes with a healthy pledge. So hopefully they take it home to their family. They talk about healthy eating and they pledge to eat healthy, and they have their little spirit stick to remind them that they can hang on their backpack or keychain. And then we'll do one more healthy snack next week. I won't tell you what it is in case anyone's listening. We want it to be a surprise. So we just thought it'd be something fun and, you know, a way to get the kids involved in some healthy choices in it. April, we have a family tech talk. It's going to be an online event because when we scheduled it, the world was still very, very weird. So we decided a virtual one would be cool. So there's all these TikTok challenges and emojis and heaven knows what else that these kids are into right now. It's so hard to keep up. So we wanted an opportunity to get our family some more information about what these kids are actually saying online and what they're doing and how to stay on top of it as a parent. It gets really challenging, I think. That is April 12th at 7 o'clock. So there's a Facebook event and it's got a meeting link right in there. It's on the DCS PTO page, and I've tried to share it everywhere I could think of, the town page, the Support Deerfield page, places like that. And in the bridge, we always put it in the bridge too. And then in May, we have our plant sale. We started doing it last year and it was a success. So we're going to sell some bulbs, which get shipped to you, or you can order hanging baskets, which you have to pick up on May 7th. And we'll have some additional items for sale that day. It's the Saturday before Mother's Day. So don't forget Mom and stop by here and pick up some plants. And last, we have Move Into May, which will be Sunday, May 15th. This will be our 3rd year doing it. So it's supposed to be a community event. We just want all the community to come out, have a good time, and get the kids away from a screen, outside, and doing something active. We're hoping to have some more stations this year, a little more activities. Like we're hoping for some karate, some Zumba, maybe Maggie LeMay with her cardio strumming again. That was really a lot of fun. The kids really loved it. And hopefully we'll bring back the 5K. Maybe with a little better marking.
I think that was one of the ones I won, isn't it?
You did win.
That's because Jeff wasn't there.
And, you know, we did have some killer t-shirts. I'm still waiting for you to wear your t-shirt, but, you know, I'll let it slide.
All right.
It's winter, it's short sleeves. I get it.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out, right? Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Executive board, Nate, have you met?
We haven't met, but I don't know if this board has met.
So.
Principal Withy? It's your turn.
Turn.
It's your turn.
All right, this covers, I've spared you the February 2nd to February 16th, so just covering February 16th. So long month that we've gone. Right before vacation, we had our classroom of the week. I was in with Mrs. Chase's 3rd grade class, and this week is Mr. Greaves' week with Mrs. Prisbolski's class. So that has been a lot of fun to be in 2nd grade and 3rd grade. On Thursday, PTO, Mrs. Dunbar forgot to mention that our awesome PTO provided on Thursday, February 17th, before vacation, we had Random Act of Kindness Day here at DCS. To go along with a Random Act of Kindness week, the PTO provided a delicious cocoa bar. Did you share that last time? I can't remember.
I wasn't here last meeting, so I thought Tina shared it.
She may have. So we had our cocoa bar, and they provided a little goodie bag, which included the Choose Kindness little bracelet that the PTO's all kinds of gifts for you tonight. So, and the kids loved it. It was a little pencil. It's always right to do the right thing, and yeah, it was very cute. Throughout the course of the day, if a student or a staff member saw somebody doing a random act of kindness, they would fill it out on a slip and bring it to the office. And every hour or so, I would get on the intercom. You know how much teachers love to be interrupted, and give a big shout out to all the random acts of kindness that have been happening for that particular hour. So that was a lot of fun. Also, right before vacation, I want to make sure that I welcome a long-term sub for Mrs. Davis's music class. Mr. Liam Quinn has joined us. He is has a lot of experience with teaching, isn't teacher certified, but certainly is qualified. He's a drummer in town, so you may have heard him drumming above throughout the town. I'm not really sure, but he's a fairly new guy to town, and he's been a big hit here at school. The kids have really enjoyed having him join DCS. On Friday before vacation, we had our weather-related remote day. We got a lot of positive feedback from staff and from students. We had very good attendance throughout the course of the morning. We were done by 12:30 and kids were off for vacation. So there were a few technological glitches here and there, and we made sure to approve the attendance, excuse the attendance if a parent reached out and, because that was a problem. So over February vacation, we had our custodial staff here doing a lot of deep cleaning throughout the building, in the hallways and in the classrooms. We had some summer help come back and some staff members who helped throughout the course of the week with a nice deep clean in the building. Also a big shout out to Mr. Layton and his brother, Mr. Layton. See what I did there? They have begun the replacement of the interactive whiteboards. So as you know, several of them are failing at this point. Some of these whiteboards have been in the building for 10, 12 years. It was always our plan to start to replace them through our budget process. But we can't seem to get out of the default. So anything that we need to be, it ends up getting wiped out of the line. So, and we're replacing our interactive whiteboards with touchscreen televisions. There's one over here in the STEM lab if you want to take a look at it. So we were very fortunate to be able to purchase a good number of them through our grant money that we money. So as you know, as you saw on the stage, there's a bunch of them. So Bob and his brother, John, were here over for vacation. Their goal was to replace 5 failing interactive whiteboards, and they got to 12. They were able to replace 12 of them. So they really worked hard. And when you replace these things, as you can imagine, you have to take it down. You have to get rid of all of the, I mean, there's stuff behind it. Trish was involved. Painting, Mr. Grieve did some painting, because when you take it down, there's 4 different layers of some sort of paint job that was done. And so, and the TV's not as big as these. So it was quite a process. Bob is saving a lot of the whiteboards for parts to continue, because we don't, there are still whiteboards in the building. So he's using the parts, and we're also giving the rest of it to the metal drive parts that we can get rid of to the metal drive. So he does have a plan. He has a map that he did for me, as Mr. Layton all does. You know how fancy he is. So we had everywhere that you see yellow is where there is now a touchscreen television that has been installed. His goal over April vacation is to replace 5 more, which is this corner right here. It includes, it's mostly the 7th grade. So it's that 7th grade corner right there. So that's his goal. But we know that he's an overachiever. So we know that he'll definitely get to more than that. And Trish is already washed up. A great vacation, right, Trish? Oh, yeah. So thank you to our school board provided pizza. Did you know that? For this last teacher professional day. So thank you for doing that. The staff was thrilled. On Tuesday, March 8th, the theme for the day was all about social emotional learning. So we started the morning off with some social emotional wellness for our teachers. That rolled into some information about what is social emotional learning. We talked about the 5 competencies of social emotional learning. The staff were then given about an hour to do a medley of sorts. So some people came up to the library and looked at all of the books that we have on social emotional learning. Some people participated in some games and activities in the gym that they could bring back to their classroom that developed some social emotional skills. Other people went for a walk in the woods. So we really tried to diversify the activities through for that hour, so they had something that of interest to participate in. And then after our nice hour-long lunch, which we all know teachers never get and staff never get to have, we were able to use the afternoon, all the teams, either grade level teams, advisories, magnets, Their expectation was that they would dive into one of the social emotional competencies, which are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision, and to develop a lesson that they could do with their class the next day. They shared them out with the grade level below them, much like we did when we had our technology day back in January. It was a similar setup. So we also really tried to connect the social emotional learning competencies with our habits of learning so that we could, the teachers, the staff could see the connection and be able to really develop those. During that day, our preschool teachers held a virtual meet and greet for some potential incoming preschool families. They just offered a Q&A time for parents and families to get on and ask any questions that they might have about the process or about the program. They gave them a little virtual tour of the room. So we were grateful for Alicia and Kianelli and Elizabeth Foyer to be able to do that. So now that we're back from vacation, we are all about Read Across America here at DCS. So we have started in full force the readathon. The students have already raised over $5,000 for the readathon, which is great. Mrs. Mostu is heading that up, and it is her goal to get some money to bring in some authors and illustrators for the kids next year. We've started a new thing this year called Battle of the Books, and so Beth had staff read a book. There was I think there's about 10 different staff members who read a book, and every day she posts the new book reading. Yesterday was Piggy Pie by Mrs. Witty, and I didn't win. It was a little bit of a blow to my ego, but it's okay. Mrs. Audley won.
You should be able to fix those results.
I agree. I thought I would be last, and then I'm definitely going to if I'm last, because who's going to beat me if I'm last? So basically a new book gets posted, and then the book from yesterday, the kids decide which book do you want, which book did you like better, and that book gets to move on in the bracket. So I will share the website with you because it is just Mrs. Mostu, as you can imagine. You know how she just knocked it out of the park. And so today was Mrs. Swanson reading The Interrupting Chicken. She does have a chicken hat on her head, so it's really very entertaining. And tomorrow we'll have a new book read, and the battle will be who will move on. Will it be Mrs. Swanson from The Interrupting Chicken, or will it be this new book? So that's a new thing that's been implemented this year, and it's good. Kids like, Mrs. Whitty, I saw you read a book. Or my favorite was, we were going to listen to you, but your book is 11 minutes long. We got to get out to recess. So we also have a bulletin board contest. We have a book scavenger hunt going on. Caught Your Reading cards, which has been a tradition here for years. On this Friday is Dress as Your Favorite Book Character, and next Friday will be Read My Shirt, which is something that we implemented last year and was a big hit. So those are some things that round out our Read Across America celebration. And just to finish up, today we had our SAU leadership meeting and met at Pembroke Hill and we had a wonderful morning as a leadership group, just discussing, if you can believe it or not, summer leadership and what that's going to look like, our summer retreat. What did we want to talk about? We talked about thoughtful classroom and moving forward with what's our next steps with that. As well this afternoon for PD Wednesday was afternoon medleys, and Mr. Monty is here, and we're continuing our work with the middle school culture work that we're doing. So we met as a team, we reviewed the results of the student survey that we did right before vacation. And we are getting ready to send out a family survey. We've surveyed the students, we've surveyed the middle school staff, the middle school students, and now we're going to be surveying middle school families regarding just all kinds of things. So be on the lookout for that. I'll send that out as a one call. And then we'll meet as a team again to review that bucket of results as well, and start talking about what, the themes that we see in all three buckets of our survey. So some ongoing things. Preschool registration is this week. As I don't know if anybody knows, but many people know, it ends on Sunday the 20th. Kindergarten registration is also happening, and that is ongoing. We don't stop our kindergarten registration. So just to answer your question from earlier, DCS preschool to kindergarten, we have 21 students, 4-year-olds that are moving into kindergarten in the fall. New as of today, we have 16 registered students as of today that filled out the registration form. Our preschool does not have to register, they're already. I know that we have 7 students coming from the community preschool. Of that 7, I don't know if any of them are part of that 16. So I don't, that's something that we're gonna update our form with, like, do you attend the local preschool so that we know not to include them in your number. So right now we have 37 kindergartners, but I foresee us bringing in more. It is our hope to have 4 kindergartens next year. We had gotten, the numbers had been small enough that we were able to have the 3 kindergartens for a couple of years, which helped out our current second grade, third graders, because that's a bigger class. But we will most likely send our current third graders off to 4th grade and put them into 3 4th grades. Be about 20 kids in each class, and then that way we can have some nice small kindergarten groups where, you know, we've done a lot of, we're looking at the projections of kids coming in, and we've got kids all over the place coming in with, you know, lack of preschool. Think about even childcare situations. Kids have not have, it's been hard, even in public school, it's been hard, but in school guys coming up, some of them have had some very interrupted times in, you know, even my staff members will get a phone call from their daycare saying, oh, so-and-so is not feeling well, you got to come pick them up. And they'd have to go home, and then they'd have to test, and then they couldn't go back the next day until they had a negative test. So, you know, we're looking to really hone in on some important things with our incoming kindergartners. So we are looking to have 4 kindergartens. Deerfield Hoop Classic continues on, and I believe this is the last weekend coming up. We have Child Find here on Monday, the 21st from 8:30 to 11:30, and that's an opportunity for anybody in the SAU, the whole SAU, if they have concerns with their child, to bring them in for a quick screening. And then our baseball and softball season has begun. We have some practices right now. I believe the first game is in mid-April. Upcoming also is our 8th grade magnet day this Friday. Our magnet is going to be doing an egg drop in the morning, and they're going to go bowling in the afternoon. Anybody in here have 5th graders? They're going to be going on the Boston field trip this year, which is a big deal because that's 2 years since they've been able to do that. So they will, that's on May 13th. I think I shared with you before that they're going to take a bus to the train station in Exeter, take the train into Boston, do their thing, and then take the train back to Exeter and get picked up by the bus to come back to DCS. So there's a lot of moving parts, but the 5th grade has it under control. And again, thank you to our PTO who's been providing our nutrition treasures this month, and I have our nutrition month that I have in May.
Questions, Nate?
How many 8th graders do we expect to lose?
We shouldn't lose any of them. I know where they all are.
School.
Graduating?
How big is the 8th grade class?
Oh, it's a little class. It's 40 something.
It's 43.
43. It's little, yeah.
It's the current 7th grade?
Is our big one.
That's the big 65, 70,
Mm-hmm.
70 kid group. That's the doozy.
I the exact number.
Maybe getting as many kindergartners as we are.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Mhm.
I think that's a fairly safe compliment. Yeah, I mean, we find kindergartners typically all the way up through the summer.
Mhm.
Start of school.
Yeah, sometimes up until the day before.
You try as hard as you can to get the word out, but some parents just don't know, and they just think, well, they have to go on the first X. Here they are.
I'm a kindergartner.
And is Gnomes happening soon?
Now, the conference, no. That's a good question. We're hopeful that we can get back to that next year.
Some questions? Right. That brings us to CRB. Have we met? Mr. Kelly, building expansion. I think we have a couple of things to talk about, Articles 1 and 2 and the results from that, as well as, I guess that was Article 4, I believe, which was adding money into the facility.
Yeah. So I could start with the easy one, Article 4. spoke with the architects at Valley Singer. Start coming up with a plan for best use of the funds for Article 4. Just trying to logistically kind of figure out what steps we should take. They were hoping to have an email to me before this meeting, but they've been tied up. But generally, what we're thinking that we're going to propose to the board as a plan of action would be to design the HVAC system. There's a couple variables, but we can design the HVAC system so we know where the rooftop units are going to go, then replace the roof in anticipation of those rooftop units, so we wouldn't be needing to undo any work. From those funds, we also need to do the fire alarm upgrades.
So I got an email. We're still waiting for the state fire marshal to approve the.
They're moving very slow right now, but it's a snail space. So
It's not just us.
no. So that being said, I'd like to get confirmation from the Valley Singer that they think that's kind of the best course of action as far as, you know, red hot items, it's constantly leaking. So I think it's probably priority number one, but I want them to get us the estimate of costs to do the design work for the HVAC as well as the design work and producing bid set, you know, plans for bid for the roof. So if everyone's comfortable with that, I'll keep moving in that direction in the conversations with Valley Singer.
So I think, and just so Jeff's talking about rooftop units, it's something he's quite comfortable with. I used to design mechanical systems, so I'm very comfortable with it. But just to kind of clarify for the other board members, but that isn't necessarily in the wheelhouse. When the mechanical systems in this building are replaced, they're not going to be replaced with the systems that are currently in use because those are obsolete systems. And they're just not produced to that extent anymore. So what will go on are, like you see on every other commercial building, large air handling units. And those require what's called a curb to be installed on the roof. And it's basically a pedestal that sits on that allows you to put the penetrations in the roof so that you have your ductwork can go from the unit into the building and off in every direction. So I think what Jeff and the Valley are looking at is spotting those curves in advance so that we set those when the roof is being redone so we're not cutting up a brand new roof, which will inherently make it shorten its lifespan in advance. Does that make sense?
And this may end up being down with informational items, but I was just gonna. So there are two things that are connected. One is it's like, you know, I'm wondering what would be the kind of process of the board moving forward with those ideas. And then I guess the rest I can bring up.
I mean, if it's building related, it's probably as good a time now as.
Well, it's more just about process.
Okay. Hey,
Which I think is the point that I was gonna ask about, or perhaps make a motion about. I think that it's, you can't look at the election results and not read into them the fact that the town is pretty upset with the proposal. And I think we would be way off base, I believe, if we were to make the argument that we did not do, I think we did a great job of publicizing it as well as we could. I don't think it was based on lack of information. I think with what we could do, we sent out the word. And I think the vote was based on the town not liking the plans, is my interpretation. And I could be wrong about that, but I don't think I am. And so I think maybe to Gigi's question, the process, we need to come back. We also are, as a board, are responsible for, and we made the case very well, that we need to take some steps to improve the educational facilities in this town. that is our job and we need the community behind us. So we need to, as I look at the next year, we need to have some sort of a end goal that we're going to be moving towards that is going to be on the ballot. And I think that we as a board need to put some sort of target that the committee, which you referred to, is going to work towards meeting. And I don't doubt what you're proposing with the roof. I don't know anything about it, but it, sounds good. But I think as a board, we need to create a goal and create clearer parameters around what we're expecting from the committee, and deliberately bringing something that fits that to the town next March. And so I am ready. I'd like to move that we have the committee sketch out a plan to bring back to the board a plan that will fit under $25 million next March.
Before we go there,
I'd like a second if there's.
is there a second? Let's have some more discussion first.
I'll second it for discussion.
Thank you.
Jeff?
So I think I made my point about it. We need to, as a board, this is us and this is our job. And so what is it that we want to do? And I'm speaking more as somebody who wasn't on the committee last year. And so I'm sort of trusting what I'm hearing, but clearly wasn't what this town wants.
So I may disagree with you somewhat on this. I don't think we have a clear understanding. We have a clear resounding.
We have a response.
We have a response, and it was no, but we don't know if it was the plan, not now, the money amount, lack of information, timing. I mean, I think there could have been a lot of variables that really could have gone into why someone decided that they would vote against that. So, I mean, obviously I did hear, as we all were, sticker shock. It wasn't like the board didn't go, oh, as same as everybody else did. But then when we looked at the alternatives, we were like, oh, okay, well, we gotta start somewhere. So, and this will probably carry into, I'll bring it up now. It's somewhat along with the process that you're talking about, but not just with the committee. I was wondering like how you guys felt about, and we can bring this back up under informational. Is really, we talked about having work sessions in the past to kind of like sit down and come up with like, all right, so we have high school, these are our next 3 steps. We have building expansion, these are our next 3 steps. We have negotiations coming up here, some things that we need to think about. So that it looks more like a work session as opposed to such a formal meeting agenda. And it doesn't mean that it can't be public, and it doesn't mean that people can't come to it and talk, but that we can actually carve those processes out.
So, because you're heading in a direction that I was going to hit in at one point, but I want to let Jeff talk, and I want to, try to kill the Article 4 part of the question first, and then when we go to the Article 1 part of the question discussion, we can, I think, dive deeper. Will you allow us to hold your motion long enough to finish?
Sure.
The Article 4 side of it?
Yes.
And Jeff, you may have something else to add to that.
Yeah, no, so the rooftop construction, that is Article 4 related. We've got now between the fund balance and the new funding, we have about 1.4 to spend on it. So that was the discussion on that. And that's the direction as far as we need to invest the money in the school, and we need to figure out how to spend the money. As far as your motion, I'm very conflicted with what to do next. Gone back and forth on it a lot, and I don't disagree with you. It was a resounding no, but like Gigi said, there's a ton of anger, or whether it's a ton of it or it's just very loud anger towards the school board and the school. Painfully so. And was it a hatred for the school board and a big
Middle finger for.
middle finger because we don't like you and we're just angry at everything? Was it concerns over the fact that, you know, there's a massive war going on? Was it inflation? Is it COVID? So I think to that end, before we make a motion, what we need to do is get out to the community while hopefully people are still engaged, ask the important questions. If you voted no, why did you vote? Was it because of the price tag? Was it because of concerns over COVID? Was it because
Russia's in Ukraine.
you know, and ask those questions and get that feedback so we can understand why they said no. My gut tells me that price tag was a huge factor on it, and I don't disagree with you there. Let's assume that price tag was the factor to get responses back, and it was the price tag, all on the board. We're in a position now where we are essentially, by the time we get the ball rolling in April, we have to have our state building aid applied for by July. What we apply for has to be, and if it's granted, it has to be what we build. So to say we're gonna go back with a $25 million building is all well and good, but the amount of work that has to go on behind the scenes, you're talking 6 to 8 months worth of work.
Yeah, you won't make this July.
Right. So I think the bigger questions maybe is splitting construction and upgrading. But to Jeff's point, I think the very first step we need to do is, so we've done a few things. A, we've gotten everybody's attention and we now have a response with concrete numbers, which is the most difficult thing for us to ever get from the community is an answer, right? And so the only time we get annually, we can get an answer with it bears any weight is at the ballot box. So we know 19% of the community is in support of the project in this percentage, and we know that 80% was not. We need to know why the 81% wasn't in support. Now, to Jeff's point, was it the price tag? Was it the fact that we had renovations and expansion combined? Was it the fact that there's Russia's in Ukraine? Was it inflation? Was it 1,000 different, there could be 1,000 different variables, but we should try to put a survey out to everywhere we can to try to solicit as many responses as we can get. And I hate surveys more than anybody. I've been clear about that, but this is actually an opportunity when a survey may, hopefully we can get enough of a response to look at it. I think part of that survey should also be, I think there needs to be multiple. So I think one of the questions on the survey is, would you like to be included in follow-up surveys? If so, please provide an email so that we can then direct surveys to respondents from the initial survey. So as we develop and the new plan emerges or matures, we can then go back to the people that responded initially to the survey. So say we get 400 or 500 responses, it'd be the best follow-up response is going to be from the people that responded the first time. That's not to say you exclude the rest of the community, but you really want to know, as the plan's developing, people that said, I didn't like it because you had expansion and renovation tied together. So a follow-up survey goes to them 2 weeks, a month later. If we presented it as a renovation project and an expansion project separately, does that change your opinion? Do you feel renovation should occur first? Do you feel expansion should occur first? And we can dive deep into it. But the first thing we need is, we all know that shouldn't pass year one, right? But we have to get a response from the community. You have to get the community's attention, and they have to understand now that this is something that we're going to be talking about. So now we have engagement. May not be good engagement, but we have engagement. So now how do we utilize that engagement? So I think the first thing we do need to do is we need to blast a survey out far and wide to try to get as many responses as we can, and we need to let it soak for a couple of weeks to get as many responses as possible. And we need to load it with very difficult questions. Is it because you don't like the board members? That's fine. Put it as a response. And if it is, great. Is it because, you didn't like the design?
The community center was bundled or.
Right.
Somehow.
And a question we need to ask is, was the design good? Do you like what we presented? Do you like the additional spaces we were adding? Do you see a benefit in that to the community? So we need to really put together that list, and it's gonna probably be, that initial survey is probably gonna be relatively lengthy. But I think part of it also needs to be, is we need to build a target follow-up afterwards. So that we can then go back to that same group of respondents. And say, you said you didn't like the design. Great. What did you like about the design? Do you not like tech ed space? Did you not like footprint? Was it too big? Do you think we should do something smaller? And then we can really dive down. But now we have the ability, we have the attention of the community. Now we have the ability to start harvesting data. And hopefully we'll get the community to continue responding, and they'll continue to stay engaged. That's the objective. Or at least my opinion.
Does it make sense to also offer a public hearing?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool.
But again, we just need people to show up.
Well, that's why I'm thinking if we're gonna send out surveys, we've seen, you already said in the past, what kind of responses we get. Obviously, we got a certain amount of response from elections. So I'm thinking the more options we give to people, the better.
Here's the plus side. We know we have support from 19% of the community for what we're deciding. That's the positive side. Now, we know another 41% is what we need for support if the project moves forward.
And I think, kind of going back to, knowing and understanding exactly what the variables were and what the vote meant, I also recognize too that, we were under a compressed timeline that we didn't really necessarily have control over. There were so many deadlines that were like, we need to get this out to the community, but we can't get out to community. We can't get out to community because this section of it isn't finished. And it was not due to lack of planning. It wasn't due to lack of, we didn't follow the steps that we needed to do. It was just that
A lot to do on this.
where we started and then where we needed to get to, we did lay out a plan and a timeline. When we laid it out, it was compressed. And it was compressed because it had gotten delayed because most of our time and energy was going towards COVID. And so I think that I feel good about the fact that we now can come up with a plan that may not feel as compressed.
We know where we stand today, 100%.
Yeah.
And we needed that vote a week ago to get a response. It's the only way we can get a response from the community seems to be valid.
Because I think we can get more and better information out.
Yeah.
Had we not been under a compressed timeline, the information campaigning could have looked very differently, but it couldn't because we didn't have the information out.
So I agree that we need to understand why we're moving forward, but we also have to look at reality. If, let's say that the issue comes back to price tag or design, right, or size, that means we're going to be redesigning the school, which means that we're not going to be eligible for state building aid. Because if we have all those results back, and it's overwhelmingly with a cost issue or a design issue, we're then back to square one. So what we as a board need to come to terms with is that if we go on a fact-finding mission, which I agree we need to, but the reality is that we find the facts that say this design that we put together in the last year and a half worth of work is down the drain and we need to start over. That's the situation that we're looking at. Maybe we get lucky and the results are not that it's cost, but probably my gut tells me is going to come back that way.
I think it certainly is important.
Let's just hypothetically say that it is. So in between now and May, we get all this information back, digest it, and we're looking at it going, okay, 45 million is way too much. What's our next step?
But is 30 million okay if we have
Sure, but
building aid, which we
No.
don't know about?
so that is a hypothetical that that's a hypothetical that doesn't help us move forward.
For building it.
For building aid, we have to come to terms with the fact that building aid probably isn't going to get back there in a scaled down version. That's the very uncomfortable part. and it's a bit of a gamble, you know? But to think that we're gonna have a redesigned plan ready to go for July isn't feasible. So I think that we need to recognize that we have two options. We march forward with that plan and design as we have it, hope that we get state building aid and we get it, and now it's $30 million project. But that's a gamble and it's a bet, and it's one I'm personally not willing to make. So, and then we have to talk the logistics of whether it's reconvening the existing building committee or whether it's forming a new one and starting at square one without renting it. Now, it's not essentially square one. They have all the existing facilities that I've done. We do have other designs that they've done. But it's going to cost us money for the redesign work. We have in that fund still. We've got, say, 120,000 left for design work. But it's going to be another year of a lot of work. And if it's just a matter of, designing a smaller facility, but I guess that's, since that vote, I've been going over, over scenarios in my head, and I guess, talking to you guys, it's kind of helped me realize that I think the path forward is that we really need to resign ourselves to the fact that this path we're talking about, is collecting the information, is probably going to lead us to a path where state building aid isn't a viable option.
Well, can we not apply for it the following year then?
We end up missing the 2-year cycle. So that's,
Could we get it 2 years later though? So yeah, we can get it 2 years later. If it goes through and if we're already building it, then we can get the state aid 2 years later.
Yeah, I mean, you have a biennium budget at the state level, but you don't know about the funding.
Right.
You're always way behind. There's been years where there's been excess budget funds and they've put it, all of a sudden building it has appeared. And, I think it was Franklin, they encourage you, if you're gonna do something, turn in an application, and all of a sudden Franklin got something funded because they released extra funds and they put it toward building aid unexpectedly. So it can go both ways.
But what we submit has to be what we.
Correct.
we have to submit what we're gonna make.
So that's a piece of information like that needs to be circulated widely and that people have to understand. Like, we will be waiting and we're rolling the dice that there wouldn't be anything in the budget if we wait for the next 2-year cycle to put in for building it. Like, people have to understand that, because otherwise they'll be like, what do you mean they put the exact same plan in?
And I think a big hurdle we ran into, and I certainly think there was some vocal members of the community that started to kind of build this thought, but you can't just renovate this building, right? So we have had enough conversations about that. We're well aware of that. The students have to be educated somewhere, and the renovations of this building are not something that you're going to do in 60 days. Can we do certain things? A roof, yes. We are not tearing out the mechanicals in this building in 60 days. It does not happen over the summer. That is a very large project. So the mechanicals are in this building until we have an expanded footprint that will allow us to relocate the students to then do the heavy renovations in this building. So we can also, a discussion is, do we say, okay, we're going to make make an envelope and we're going to fix it. We're going to put a new roof on it. That's a thing that we can address, and we're gonna do it with enough foresight to know that at some point mechanicals are gonna be replaced. We're gonna put curbs in. Do we present a bond that just says, you know what, we're gonna go after the first thing, which is put the addition, and the existing structure stays the same. And then as a follow-up a year later or 2 years later, do we then say, okay, we've taken care of part one, do we address part two as separate items? Because they are not mutually independent of each other. This building doesn't get renovated until there's another footprint for us to educate the students.
It seems that I'm not sure how many decisions you can make without the Valley Bremsinger, because they're the architects, and I think we have to have a meeting with them to say, what's your, but can we even do that? They may come back and say, well, if you just do an addition, that means you're gonna pay twice for this, and this. If you say, well, what can I get for 25 million? You may cut yourself way short in terms of, we have to look at, we have a lot of issues to address. We have to address the fact that this building is packed and people are in closets, but we also have to address what you want the education to look like for your kids for the next 40 years. And if you cut yourself short, I think there's gotta be some kind of a middle ground. I don't know how to get there without them guiding us along the way. And that's a full board meeting, and a work session.
So
Just a clarifying question, why do we keep saying 25 million?
Because that's the.
That was
motion.
the motion.
Is the motion that's on the table right there.
And that's my fear, is if you just kind of pick a number without having.
I don't think you can.
So I guess what are your expectations for 25 million?
I don't know, but it is incumbent upon us to get something done. And if the voters are not, we need to pick something. And I don't know what the voters are gonna approve, but if we do something for a year and it turns out to be 40 million, we end up doing all this work. And yeah, I agree, we need to hear what they say. But if all this work comes back and it's 40 million, that's not gonna pass next year either. And now we're 2 years in, and with escalation costs, now it's gonna be even more expensive to get even less. So what I'm thinking, and behind this motion, is that we need to do something in March. We need to get something through the voters. And I don't think the voters are gonna approve anything over 25 million. I don't even think, really, I'm not that optimistic to approve 25 million. I'm a little bit, what was the cause? It would be interesting to know. But they were really mad about that number. And I'm not very optimistic. And how this building was built was not certainly not a 45. I don't think it was in 1990 dollars. It was a 25 million. It was less than that, which is why we're dealing with these questions right now.
So I can understand, I guess, the perspective to want to just like cut it in half. But when I looked at the data that was presented by LBA on other buildings and schools that have been built around here within the last couple of years, we tried to find the most similar projects to what we were trying to accomplish. And our price per square foot was, I think, less than the average of all the others.
So then maybe the answer isn't reducing the price per square foot. Maybe the answer is reducing square foot.
So that raises the second question, is trying to address the space needs concern. And if instead of building a 35,000 square foot addition, so put up a 15,000 square foot addition, what I don't want to see happen is what happened in 1990, 1992, and whatever it was, 96 or 2000, whenever it was. And then modulars are rolling back. I don't want to do that. So I think the first step for us, before we do anything else, before we make motions to slash price it, nothing else should be, the very first step is we need to make an attempt to solicit feedback from the community. And maybe for the first time, we can actually get them to give us feedback and to provide us that feedback. We got their attention. We got exactly what we needed out of the vote last week, which was the community's attention. Now they're paying attention. Everybody's tuned in. They might be mad as hell, but they can't say they didn't see it. And I know a lot of people spent a lot of time when they were there voting. It was 20 to 30 minutes from what I was told from most people who went through the ballots. That tells me two things. They were thinking about it. It also tells me there may have been a lot of people that went in there not having prepared in the first place, right?
We could also talk about the voter turnout.
Which was huge.
40%, 46%.
For a town election is phenomenal, because 800 is a typical town election. So in that regard, it was a phenomenal turnout. But final thought of mine is I don't think we should, until we get enough of a feedback loop going, I don't think we should make any drastic changes to the plan. I think it should just sit in the simmer for a little bit until we very quickly try to get.
So my concern is that, once again, time is against us. Years gonna fly by. And, the day after the election, my first thought was, okay, we need to get the select board, someone from the select board on this committee, we need someone from the NBC, we need some Parks and Rec, we need community involvement day one. And
I guess Nick Errol was going to volunteer.
need Errol on the we need to think about how we're going to use this next month as wisely as possible, efficiently as possible. So we know that we need to collect the information. Absolutely, we need to start that and figure out a process by which we're going to do that. But I would also ask myself, what else could we be doing to be productive? I think bringing LaValle Brensinger in to have this conversation. We have a meeting focused only on this. And we work through all the what ifs. It's too soon to start redesigning it. But it's almost, we need to move fast, and collecting information takes time. So maybe we just.
So we have a motion on the table. Is this still all kind of under?
I think we're just having one really large discussion.
Okay,
And the motion's just kind of hanging out.
all right.
If that's okay. with
So let's
you.
check it.
That's okay.
Okay. Like, I'm wondering if it makes sense for us to have a live in-person information, Andy, you mentioned a public hearing. Have that first, so we can see what kind of questions, so we can kind of get live, and that might help us create a survey. If we then need to send a survey out, and I hear what you're saying, like, I have the same anxiety, it's like, June is really right around the corner, is it June or July?
July
July
1st.
first
Well, okay.
is due.
Yes.
Yes,
So it has to be, it could, because there's a lot of work that has to
It's kind of
go
like work.
to put the application together.
I don't mean to be negative, but there's no way you're gonna have a design and a plan ready to turn in a detailed
new design,
application.
you're saying.
Yes, on July first.
Yes.
LBA had a plan to finish the.
I totally understand that.
Okay.
So, but that's why I'm saying that information has to go out. Otherwise, the building aid, we're gonna roll the dice. Because at least we know right now, and correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding of the building aid is that it is in the current biennial budget. There is,
We're waiting for the next budget.
right, but the next budget.
We're going after building aid that will be in the next
In the
budget,
next
Right.
Yeah.
which is the budget they'll finish and complete in January-ish
Yeah.
of 23, which would go into effect July 1, 23.
Okay.
So we're trying to get an approval in January of 23 for funds available in July of 23.
Right.
If the funds are available, if we know where we rank in January of 23 and we know what the funds are going to be in January of 23, we'll have a much better understanding, and we could potentially craft a warrant article to say, which is what Allenstown did.
Correct.
And so we could model it after the language that Allenstown had, but it effectively said, and I'm going to summarize, is does the town support a bond for X amount of dollars with the understanding, summary of the language, basically, do you support a bond of $45 million with $15 million to be coming from state building aid? If the state building aid becomes unavailable, the article doesn't go into effect, or the school board will not act.
Yep.
So that would be like a step, right? Because that was, a lot of the questions were tied to building aid, and everybody wanted to know what building aid is. And that may be, maybe when we get into these deeper conversations, we find out from people, well, I just want to know what the building aid is going to be. Do we have it or not? Okay. And if they go 30 million, it's fine. Great.
Perhaps what we do is we've got a plan and a budget that allows us to submit a robust application. Maybe what we do is submit based on what we currently have. That process begins, goes on.
I don't know that you can. I would want to find out about that. If they know that you don't have the funding, I don't think they're gonna accept it.
We are allowed to. That
We
was-
can without the, oh, okay. I
That was
wasn't
part of
sure.
our conversations.
So we're allowed to.
So even
submit.
if it didn't get approved.
Correct. So let's say that we submit July of this year. I know. So that is one track we go down. And currently, we start working with the community to figure out what the issues were But as we say, we find out overwhelmingly it's cost, we all agree as a board that we need to redesign this and find a way to get that cost down to get this valid. We begin on that track, back to square two with LBA, working on a redesign. While that's going on, our building aid application is in process. When do we find out about funding for building aid? Would it be January of 23? So January of 23 comes around. Now, this time we will spend additional money redesigning a smaller project. Now got our building aid application in, we find out in January, yes, it was approved. Then we have a decision. Let's say we get the 15 million, we've got $30 million project at this point. We as a board need to decide, because at the same time, we've designed a smaller project and come up with a smaller budget. So now we've got a project that's got building aid with it, and we've got a project that doesn't have building aid with it, it's a smaller project. January, we sit down and we say which warrant article, the one that has the building aid or the one that has the smaller price tag. Downside to that equation is we're going to spend another
60,
40, 50, $60,000 designing a smaller building.
So I don't disagree with you, but I don't agree with you. And I think my mentality is more so track A is track A, right? Because we've already set that train is kind of already rolling down the tracks to a certain extent, right? It may run back off of them again, but it's still moving. I think track B is we look at as we're getting all this data back, because the plan wasn't wrong, right? There was nothing wrong in the plan outside of potentially cost, but it addressed the needs without doing anything excessive. It corrected the deficiencies this building has, the inherent deficiencies that have been in this building for 30 years. And that's not to say this isn't a good building. Education was different 30 years ago than it is today. So I think the second part of it is maybe what happens next year is you have track A going down track A. Maybe plan B is we just go after the addition. We don't get any building aid and we say, you know what, the first thing we need to correct is footprint. Build an addition. And it's 20 or 25 million, whatever that dollar amount may be. And you split it. Because that was another thing, like you look at common themes, right, from the objections that we were hearing. And that was a common theme was, well, how come you're not just renovating the building or how come you're not just putting an addition in? Why does it all have to be at once? So the first step, because we know we can't renovate the building without having the expanding footprint, would be to expand the footprint. We fixed some of the envelope issues because we have some money now. The community gave us some money to say, hey, go fix these things. Great. We address the ones we address. And then we look at it, we go, okay, we find out about building aid, we chase that warrant article. If we don't get building aid, we say, okay, we need to expand the footprint. That project is going to be X amount of dollars. And in the future, we still have to renovate the 30-year-old structure, but we can address that at a separate time when the community decides it's ready for it.
So that's tracks
B.
Yeah.
And then you're keeping B, I'll call it C, that's fine.
In that, what would that require? So track B requires quite a bit of work. The gamble essentially of $50,000-$60,000. If we get to January, we don't have building aid and we've gone track B, we have a project ready to go and write a warrant article on.
That has to be done before. You don't have that information before you know the building.
Can I draw on the whiteboard?
I hear what you're saying. I did have that question. Like, in order, because when does the warrant have to be drafted?
They were late this year.
Yes.
We got that to the budget
Yeah, we
committee
had it in
really.
January.
I thought it was January
Well,
18th.
but they start and they start meeting in December. And they were like waiting for our warrant article, and it would be better to get the information out sooner rather than later.
Can I really?
Yeah, there's a whiteboard marker right there by the computer.
Jeff was hoping to use one of our new interactive smart
TVs.
right out of the shop. Is this? Are you qualified to operate that?
Teachers always had the good ones to top.
We've got project,
Just above.
Permanent one.
Certain.
we've got.
All the troublemaker class would have swamped it with.
Yeah.
permanent.
January, right? So project day, we submit building aid. Do nothing else. And then project C, your thought is we'll collect info. Then what?
Split. Collect info, depending upon what we find out. But once we find out, splitting renovation and expansion. And tackling more than likely expansion first.
Split project. No more work needs to be done because the costs there, and we do warrant for
Expansion.
30 million.
Yes.
So. We need to start collecting info.
These can run parallel to a certain extent. Initially, that we can throw all this on the tracks and start. Right? Because project A is project A. It's already rolling. First step of B and C is going to involve collecting info. I see way too many phones and I'm getting nervous.
Oh, handwriting?
Try a little bit, I have to say. You need to write a little bit bigger.
You can walk over to the board if you just want to get a better picture. So
it's an A, B, C.
B and C, they start the same way, which is collecting info. So I think it's, we let project A continue on its current course. And you let B and C mature after you get some info and start beating data. Feeding into the data.
How much work and money goes into submit building? We still have to finish that design, right?
No, we're ready to submit.
Yep.
So we'll have the architect's time cost us,
Something, but
something.
no, the hard part's done.
The challenge is, we started the actual, once we hired the architects and we started the design work in April or May of last year, right? So, and that was a tight timeline, but again, we've got a lot of the legwork done. They know the facility.
Yeah, you had 90 days worth of fact finding.
Yep.
Right, so I mean, the facts have been found, so you've created a bigger window in that regard, and a change in, if you redesign a smaller building, although you may just find that it's a modification of one of the
Well, that's the thing. We
variants,
have
right?
those other redesigns that were done already,
That we,
conceptually, not to where you could get pricing on it. So, but we're not.
so if I'm not wrong, we just need to start collecting info.
I agree with you. And I think we need to set a deadline of April 1st to be complete with our fact finding mission. So that gives us, what? month
2
are we in?
weeks, March, you're gonna need.
All right. So let's say mid-April,
Mid-April,
and then we need to meet as a board and decide if we want to go project B, track B or track C.
so our mid-April meeting is gonna be calendar, but
You
let me
have
see.
from the 6th and the 20th of April.
So the 14th is gonna be 14th? What day is the SAU meeting?
The 13th.
Let's do, I think we can do the 6th. I mean, we're talking surveys. It's not like need.
Who's writing the surveys?
That's 3 weeks to write, distribute, and look at and analyze results.
It's 2022.
I already drafted some,
It's actually, the survey's been out for 20 minutes, and he's already got it down on his little contraption over there,
I just threw some, summary stuff down, so.
So I think in order to move as agile as possible,
so why don't we make the second April meeting a building specific work session?
the 20th?
Yeah.
Is you costing us 2 weeks of, no, we need.
Then do you want to meet the week prior and just do that week stuff.
I'd like to meet April 6th.
Yeah, you can do your April 6th meeting. We just had a business meeting, so we can get rid of reports and all.
You want to do that?
We're okay.
Does this board want to do that on April 6th? And why don't we make April 6th, why don't we start it off with a public hearing or a public forum?
I think that, for a lot of reasons. Like,
Sorry, but didn't we get, we had a lot of public attending for the
Well,
2 weeks leading up to that election.
Not really.
no, we
Not
didn't,
really.
You don't think so?
we had 1,000, how many voters?
16.
Yeah,
And we had maybe at max, the most people that were in that cafeteria, maybe
50.
were like,
No way.
No way. It
20.
wasn't
I think
50.
it was like 2022.
I was thinking 50.
55. It feels like 50 to us because normally there are
Three.
3 people here. So yes, it felt like 50, but I'm kind of nerdy and I always count.
but they're not all, I mean, clearly we're not gonna have 1,000 people show up, but do you think we're gonna get more people than the 50 that showed up last time to come and talk to us?
Well, but then that's information. Then I'm gonna put that out there. Then I'm gonna say, listen, we are asked to, everybody is saying, you don't listen to us, you haven't heard us, you haven't done these things. I'm going to create another venue and we're gonna blast it out and spread it out all over the place. Then it's gonna be, okay, we made these out with this avenue.
Yeah,
And
And I love the optimism, but I don't know, but I don't think, I think a lot of those people voted, they showed up without complete information, I'll give you that, but they're not going to take a few hours to come get more information. They're gonna vote on the fact that it was $42 million. And if it's $25 million, maybe we'll get a few more who say, okay, I can see that floating. We're not gonna get, I am frustrated, I clearly, and I like your optimism. I don't think we're gonna get more
it's
people.
really about creating the venue though. It's really about creating the opportunity. If you don't create the opportunity, then we just make an assumption that that's not gonna happen. And that I think is where I'm coming. We have to create the opportunities.
So,
If they don't come, they don't come. We can't help that, but we do have a responsibility, I think, to create that communication avenue and opportunity. That's what I think. And I still think that there are a lot of reasons why people voted the way that they did. I've talked to people who that are friends of mine that may have voted no because of different reasons. And so I think it really is important, A, to create that venue and B, to have some understanding.
so April 6th,
I don't disagree with you about the number. I think the number was problematic.
so, but let's start April 6th, work session / at the beginning of the meeting, let's public, this forum, I guess is the correct terminology. We'll have a public forum. Let's have a back and forth conversation and then we can get into the work session. Let's try to get a survey out and let it soak, up until the 2nd or 3rd. We can always send it back out afterwards if we want to try to let it soak again. There's no need not to, right?
What platform should we use for the survey?
So this is where I default to anybody else in the room because I hate surveys.
Is that what you're doing right now, Andy?
I mean, there's Survey Monkey, we could use, we could Google Forms is fine.
We've been using Google Forms. I think people are used to that format. It's pretty simple. You've already done questions? Is that what you're?
They're like rough, they're not like finished, there's no question marks that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Their thoughts.
So then, April 6th, we're gonna make a decision. Whether we go project C or project B, whether we redesign or we split.
Or D if it shows up and makes itself blazing.
Without the Valley Brunswick?
I think we invite La Valley April 6th.
We get those presentations.
Not to give a presentation, be part of the conversation.
For the conversation. I mean, they've dealt with many failed bonds.
Yep.
Failed warrant articles.
They're not supposed
They
to
know-
pass the first year.
They
We all
know what the plan B and the plan C could look like.
And I think we get them to enter us as we make that decision. That's nice, because
then it needs to be ground on track B. Project C will be a little manageable. The last question I have is, how do we involve the town and utilize components of the project?
So I certainly think the committee as it currently sits, that was the committee to get the design and figuring out done. And I think really we need to change that committee, that role.
Need more people.
Yeah.
Need more people, and it's a different committee, right? Because potentially different committee.
I agree completely. I think that we've got a really strong asset with the Yes for DCS committee that's built the infrastructure and the groundwork, and they're looked to as proponents of it. The questions I have is if we need to create a non-biased committee as the school board, or if we can work in conjunction with them. Obviously, we can use district funds and resources for it, but what is the umbrella under which we bring in people from this community? I think it's really important that we involve, whether it's board members from all the different,
Well, I certainly think we should, and I talked to Fred at the elections about kind of involving the select board and the school board and select board, even maybe both boards having a joint meeting so we talk about the big picture for the town. But I think we should try to change up the committee, because I think it needs to be, let's bring in someone from the select board. I think you have to do, bring in somebody from the select board, bring in somebody from Parks and Rec, and let's look for, really we want to look for the naysayers, right? So let's bring some of the naysayers in and say, be part of the process.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's.
There was clearly one or two.
You reach out to people, make phone calls and say,
Yeah.
hey, at least not necessarily for the committee, but for April 6th.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're really looking for important feedback, and we've had some important opinions about that. Come to the meeting and bring.
as far as community outreach and engagement, let's say we assemble this task force under whatever umbrella. What I struggled with, and as the building expansion committee, totally comfortable in that space, going from RFPs and the technical know-how. But as far as the public outreach and marketing, that is not my wheelhouse. So, do we want someone else to chair that? Move it on ahead. That I get.
I don't think we're at the marketing part yet. We have nothing to market at the moment.
So for now, the reason I bring it up is because between now and April 6th or May, or at what point do we begin trying to re-engage with the town? I think time is on it. This is every week goes by, people are gonna forget about that warrant article 1.
Right.
So we can leave the building committee as it sits for the nuts and bolts side of the equation, and we can have building outreach independent of that. Because the nuts and bolts stuff is still gonna be. But building outreach is maybe different, and it's a different group of people.
But it's not, I don't see a role for them until,
After the 6th?
until like December, until the vote. It's
No,
like
no,
January.
we now have marketing time. So it isn't until January. Now we're, as we progress down the path, now we can have the dialogue.
The problem with what happened last year was that
We had to
Force was
compress
under
it
the
to get a
bar,
vote.
Here we were with a $45 million project educating people about it, and we didn't have any kind of feedback.
Or limited.
But I think we got the word out there pretty well. I
No.
think people are aware of.
I think we got it, we did. I'm sorry, I interrupted. I'm sorry, bad.
It's all right. I am just, it's another thing. So I guess, I don't know, I think the first question to me is like, who's writing the survey? And to me, that sounds like it's the building committee, it's not gonna be the outreach committee, right? There's work that needs to
I
be
think
done.
the board
before
is
we
running the survey.
I
Okay,
think Andy's writing the survey.
I got a draft.
Let's blame it on the Russians.
I lost, connection and I don't have it anymore. My notes are gone.
Russians.
Yeah, they told me what to ask.
To me, there's no, that was a clear no. What we just tried to sell was a definite no. So if we come back next week and start trying to sell it again, to me, that seems like not a good use of our time or the committee's use of time right now. I think that this needs to go back into the committee that was designing this. And the motion is to say, you got $25 million to deal with, and we would like next year another idea that is caught, whatever. When I get, maybe we won't vote on this, and it certainly doesn't like it's going to pass. But that is where the work needs to be done, is in that committee, repicturing what's going to happen. It's not about selling it right now.
But
And
depending on what we pick, we're not there yet. There's nothing.
okay, that's fine. But the outreach committee, they did a great job, and I think we should not be talking about that for a few weeks.
Outreach is so much more than here's a $45 million. So outreach is hearing everybody in the community and getting.
I think that's the school board. That's not the outreach committee. I agree. It's not a school board sanctioned group. That is a private group that is not the school board. So I think there's a clear separation.
All right.
So,
First step, before anything else, we agree what we're doing on the 6th. We're going to get a survey out to SOAK. We're going to have a public forum. We're going to have a work session, strictly building related.
So let's put in survey.
Sounds like
draft,
Andy's.
send it to the whole school board,
You
CC.
can't have a meeting between you and them.
well,
That sounds like a meeting.
so my question is, do we need like an emergency work session just to develop?
Just to build survey. Or just have two people.
Or do we draft a survey? Yep. 2 people draft a survey, we send it to LBA, have them look at it, add or remove questions or tweak the language, send it to Patty and Kristen, have them take a look at it. And then just send it out, blast it out.
Yes. That's what.
Okay, so obviously it's Andy and Gigi.
Let's do it.
Make sure you include the Russians. Blame everything on the Russians. Okay, so that's going, okay? That's gonna bring us to April 6th. April 6th, hopefully, we're gonna have a resounding amount of feedback from the community and a remarkable number of attendees here to talk to us. Hopefully. I would even go against my better judgment and maybe invite the contraption over there for people that are watching at home to be able to ask questions once against my better judgment and be able to hear them then during at least the public part. If it turns into what we were seeing at other board meetings, we'll just turn it off. But
I'm just worried, just want to make sure the technology works, that we can, if they have a question I guess you can sit there if people can't hear, we
You
can
can
read the
submit,
question.
you can submit stuff in writing
Yeah.
as comments.
Yeah.
So worst case
We can
scenario
make it
is,
work.
so I would for that meeting invite that aspect of it as well, so that we can hear from people that are at home, that young kids, whatever it may be. So we can do that. And then at that point, that gives us an opportunity, brings us to the next step, which will allow us to discuss the feedback, hear feedback, and start developing the rest of the plan. It sounds like Plan A needs to continue. Plan A is continuing no matter what, as far as an option. And we just need to figure out, is it B, C, or is it a yet to be determined option? But Plan A is predicated, we can say Plan A is going to predicate itself on the availability of building aid. And that's what kind of sets that down its path.
It doesn't cost any extra money between now and next year.
It's going to cost time for the architects to fill out the application, so you'll have some time, but
And will it be taking architects' effort, the committee's effort and attention away from?
the committee would have minimal
Yeah.
Interact.
All else.
LBA submitting. You want the most robust application, you want that.
They'll probably need up in Amber.
So that allows that to continue down a course. And then we work on B and C in the interim, or D, or whatever it may be, as we progress. But I think that's the first wave of playing forward.
And I think I just want to correct the statement, because you said you emailed a lot of information, and I think I said, no, we didn't. And because I don't want Yes for DCS to think, I don't think there was like wonderful amounts of information, but it was a compressed time period.
Right.
It wasn't until we were able to get to the point where we could put the information out. Whereas I've seen other districts and the entire year is spent building these pieces of putting information out. Where, you know, the board members are sitting in people's homes, they're sitting in coffee shops, they're sitting and they're having these meetings and they're explaining over and over and over again the misinformation that is out there. And we knew that compressed time frame was not gonna allow us to do that. So what we got is the best we could get with the time that we were given. Knowing that it really wasn't the amount of information getting out. And we saw by the amount of disinformation that kept popping up. And then we were like scrambling to like fix the disinformation.
We spent as much time countering bad information as we did. Our energy was invested almost countering bad information, more so than it was putting out the information we wanted to put out.
Yes, I would agree.
That energy could have been spent providing accurate information. And instead it was spent responding to bad information.
Yeah.
And that's never the format that you want to do it. Again, we had to get something out because we had to get a response from the community. We got exactly what we needed on Tuesday.
Yep.
So
As hard as it was.
we know we have 19%, we need 41% more. Now we can start working on that 41 or greater, because that's like a greater response. But now we know where to start working. And we've already heard a bunch of objections, and now that people have started to see it, we can hear the rest of the objections, and then we can start addressing the objections. And we very well lost votes just because of misinformation, right? And because of bad information. Because I heard a bunch of bad information. So if we were losing votes tied to bad information, well, that's great. Now we can take our time to really go to each individual person. Because I was talking to people and they were like, well, no, that's not even remotely accurate. Right? You know, somebody, oh, the windows are no good. No, the windows are there and they're present. They can be better. If you're going to tear the building apart, that's going to replace it. Well, they said the windows, somebody told me the windows were all broken. No, they're here, right? So but now we can slow the process down and really take our time working through each individual thing. Dedicate the time to the individual components and work on it.
And now your optimism there.
You ever found me to not be optimistic?
Yeah, that's a good thing. So then have we considered, some demo Bear brought up a while ago, and I think we brought it up once or twice recently, this sort of getting on the town's website to be able to send things out, because the survey is a great idea, but how are you gonna get it to people is the perennial question.
So the IT guy from the town, I think can post anything for us that we asked him to. I'm drawing a blank. Steve. Is it Pete? Steve. Very abnormal for us to allow the public to.
But you're talking about something I know a lot about, that I've been pressing for, and that I've mentioned to you and to you and to you and to you, and it's really simple. Okay. The town can put a page on its website for the school. You can post to it, and then everybody in town can subscribe to getting that notification. It's really easy. I've talked to John Harrington. They're on board with the idea of doing it. They're happy to do it. It needs to happen if you want to get your message out. Okay, it's really simple.
So they use
Sorry
Civic
for
Plus.
What?
They use Civic Plus, and I've got emails with Steve about that, and I was going to ask for it to be on our agenda for our next meeting, so it's relevant.
I don't care how it gets out, it just needs to get out. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if it's
Doesn't require a board vote. Who's taking care of this?
sounds like Andy just volunteered, is what I heard.
Yep.
Jeff,
Can we move the motion?
can we table the motion?
Sure.
Or move it, he said,
Does he move the question or?
Move the question.
to take,
Yeah.
to vote.
Do you want to move it or do you want to
Let's vote on it.
Let's have it.
table? All right, so there's a motion from Nate to cut the cost of the project, 25
To
million.
send it back to the committee with a limit of $25 million.
So that was the motion, seconded by Gigi?
Yep.
Okay. So all in favor of Nate's motion? If that passes, it undoes this whole conversation we just had. Aye. All opposed?
Good on table.
I'm sorry, can I, because I couldn't hear all the voices, how many yes, no?
There was one for,
1 and 4?
1 and 4, yeah.
Thank you.
Could we, whether it's Andy who takes it on, but work with, the tech department to get that up and going on the town site? Would it be a separate page? You know, what would it look like?
Sure.
You're willing to take that on?
Sure, I already have a thread with them.
Thank you.
Awesome, thanks.
On the subject, does it make sense to reach out to, the newsletter, the newspaper, the regional newspaper, the forum? Ask them to potentially post either a link to something. I don't know if you can do hyperlinks in the file.
I can do
but-
that. If I get the link, I can send it.
All right.
How does what does this page look like?
So I think the town page creates a gizmo that hooks to a thingy-majig.
Yeah, I'm not sure to use that. Andy, what is it for, whatever, what is it, because if we're now creating a new page, there is the appearance, there's the editing, there's the maintaining,
So
who's in charge of making it?
Typically, what would happen is this, a really near similar experience that we had, Kristen posting the FAQ or on the SAU website. You basically add some text to a text field and you, just like you would in Microsoft Office or in an email, you click a button that says insert link or insert hyperlink, and then you paste the link that I'm going to share with you that you're going to send to the forum. The forum obviously already has all the layouts and stuff, so they might be like, okay, well, what kind of text do you want to include with it? So if the board wanted to put together a summary of what the survey is for, that could be presented before the link that people would then see. But it could be as simple as just DCS expansion survey.
So if this is gonna be sent out, there's gonna be an email, it's gonna be sent out to say, come look at this page. Then the page needs to have information on it before you have the link to the survey.
So you're talking about the town's website?
Yeah. I
So
think
an email, as far as I know, unless it can get approved, is, I don't know if emails can get pushed to all the subscribers of the town.
Yeah.
Typically, you have to subscribe to an email to actually receive it. So what we would do, what Steve hopefully would do, is put a summary of whatever we're trying to do.
So
Or
he's
a
not going to do that. He's not gonna, that's my point, is we're not putting Steve in charge of writing the text that we want.
We would do that.
Okay, so we're gonna write
PG and
it.
I are gonna do that.
Okay, you are. So that's what we're talking about. You're writing a text, which is gonna have a link,
Mhm.
and that's what we think is gonna be sending out.
And then we can tell people
Blast it out.
in the town to go onto the town's website. They can find a link there. We'll use Kristen and the network that we have through the school for parents and all those people to send an email to them, say, hey, please take a survey. And then folks that read the forum, they'll be able to see it advertised there. And then we'll potentially be able to engage people that way.
So one other question, survey, I think we should try to discern as an early question, and maybe, again, not a tech guy.
Who's the ones is in the widget?
Maybe the widget works this way, but in that survey, if an early question can be, did you vote last week? Did you vote yes or no on Article 1? I don't care about Article 2 at this point.
Okay.
Did you vote yes or no on Article 1? You voted yes on Article 1. Is it a different set of questions to say, what did you support?
So it'd be an open-ended question is basically what it is.
Yeah, maybe it brings a slightly different set of questions to find out where the support, why was there support for Article 1? Because the questions, it's a different set of questions if you voted no,
Okay.
right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't know if you can filter somebody's experience to the questions that they see based on their initial question, but I'll figure it out.
Not on Google, I think you
Okay. And if you can, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Survey monkey, Andy, and have it have additional answers.
So then we'll probably want to do that.
I don't know what any of that means.
Well, I think I found somebody who's gonna be part of the team.
All right.
I'm just concerned that we're gonna have all these things up here and they're not gonna be coordinated. Because we're not doing this as a board, we're okay.
Well, no,
as a
because it's
board.
all coming back to one spot. All you're doing is picking it up from a bunch of different
You know,
places.
I'm talking about the text, I'm talking about the questions on the survey, I'm talking about all the things we're about to send out.
We already talked about that. Gigi and I are gonna draft it and send it to the board. and then the board is gonna either approve it or not. We're gonna send it to LBA. Also gonna send it to Kristen and Patty.
That's, I think one thing we need to be aware of is that it's March 16th and we're looking for this by April 6th. So I'm happy to pitch in with you guys if you need help.
Well, no, you're not, because that makes 3.
Fine, but we need to move quick because really we need this survey out. We have it up next Wednesday. That'll be the 23rd.
It's in 2 weeks.
We have 2 weeks, so. You know,
People better respond quickly when I send stuff.
but I'm just saying, we all need to be aware that in our busy lives, this needs to.
I do think at this point, tonight's festivities, we've beaten this horse pretty hard. You all agree? Ready to move out of the barn and we'll beat the horse again in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and as far as community outreach, we'll put that on hold until like the 6th.
That can be part of April, that's part of it, all the discussion. Okay. We're done beating that horse. High school options, Nate, can I just feel this one very quickly?
Yes.
We have had a very good conversation with Concord recently, and we have an additional meeting with Concord scheduled next one,
24?
Tuesday? It's Tuesday. We have one next week, which will hopefully,
Thursday.
I'm sorry, next Thursday. So hopefully that will, we've gotten into the nitty gritty. So
Are we still talking with any other schools?
we are finishing the conversations with Concord first. We've had conversations with Code Brown already.
Just, so in terms of the other schools, Concord is more of a negotiation. The other schools already have set tuition agreements that they use for sending schools. So if they're not our school of record, they're not going to have a negotiation. They're going to treat it just like they do other schools that are sending their students, and they have a contract. And this is what you'll pay if you send some kids here. If parents choose to come here, this is our rate. So it's not the same as the negotiation.
Unless we end up deciding not to make Concord our school.
That's right. If you want a school of record, then that's a
In which
different
case
thing.
we need to go.
Yeah.
We have to then start that
Yeah.
discussion next thing.
Because we're in negotiations with Concord, are you unable to shed light on if we're looking at high school options or at all in the process of negotiation?
I think during the negotiations,
Well, I think it's okay to say that the message to clear message
made
was
it
we
very-
want options.
we made it very
So-
clear.
We can't talk about the specifics of what we're discussing with Concord, but I think it's been on the table and okay to say that we've looked at multiple options in schools and
We've made that
nothing's been shut down in terms of.
clear to Concord what
Yeah.
we have very clearly communicated to Concord what the feedback.
And as far as the timeline goes, contracts up 2024. Will we, are you confident we'll have something for more active by March?
Our last conversation with Concord was we're hoping to be completed our talks with them in the next 2 months.
We need to know if the board will be satisfied with the conversations with Concord in order, like he said, to make a decision if we're gonna pursue them as our school of record or continue to pursue them as our school of record, or if we're gonna make a difference.
So as far as people in the town are concerned, they should have an answer on the direction we're headed.
Towards the end of the school year. Okay. And again,
Be more information. I don't know if there's.
Yeah, I don't know if that'll be done, but you'll have.
No,
more.
but we'll be able to talk publicly about the outcome of the negotiations.
yeah, we just, if we have to negotiate with anybody else, we don't want to
Yeah, we
put
need
all
to
the
be
cards
careful.
on it.
Yeah.
So there's facets.
So it's safe to say though that we're currently negotiating from a position where we want high school choice for our students.
Yes.
We will hopefully be able to update the board more after the next conversation.
Okay. Thank you.
But the conversations have been productive. All right. MBC reorganized yesterday. Bill Von Hassel is remaining on as the chairman, and Joanne Bradbury is the vice chair. It was a quick meeting, and they have adjourned until September-ish, so we can go ahead and remove them from the agenda for a bit. That's it with there. Other than that, the makeup of the NBC stayed the same through the election. There's no changes. Everybody that was existing is reelected.
Oh, no, I feel like I heard there was a change from the select rep.
Yes, so Alden Bill is no longer the selectman rep, is now Will Huber. Go ahead.
Before we move on from what we've been talking about at a larger sort of higher level here, it's like Gigi's idea about having some sort of a kind of work session to kind of look at the bigger ideas, prioritizing, laying out, making a plan. That's almost like a strategic planning kind of thing. Can we think about when that might make sense to take into account?
Probably part of your goal that could turn into some of your goals too, I would think. Right, is that what you're thinking, like your kind of your plan?
Yeah.
And you can start that sooner rather than later.
That's
Wait.
what I was.
We can also adapt to a meeting model where is a business meeting.
And the other
When we do,
ones.
we show it in the second meeting of the month, vice versa. We said we do it. Can be work session. We dedicate it to, a topic or two topics.
Sounds like the first one in May then.
Would be a work session again, or if we want to kind of stick with that first meeting of the month as a work session mentality. And then try to just hold it as a business meeting, second meeting. Certainly try to do that if that's what the board would like to do. Just want to settle in on what our work session goals are going to be every prior to every meeting, so we can get a schedule for ourselves.
Or at least try it out.
Yeah.
See.
I think it was really productive when you were doing it.
COVID kind of dogged up a lot of stuff. So is that, we want to give that a whirl? Is that we have consent?
Because we have so many things on the plate. And I feel like to kind of lay out a project management sheet. would be-
So business meetings, the second meeting of the month. First meeting of the month, we will hold as work sessions for topics to be determined. Good.
And are we going to go back to the people only need to be here if they're needed for the topic at hand?
As far as
We can
staff,
let, staff, administration, there won't be any reports for different people from committees unless they want to take part in the work session.
you don't want to come to all of our work sessions? Heartbroken.
I said it on me.
When you don't come in first place reading the book, you just.
I know, I'm dropping.
It's been a rough week this week, guys.
No, I'm hurt, so therefore I'm gonna hurt you.
Oh,
You hurt people, Zach.
you cut me deep. That's okay. I'm fine. Made
I'm
a lot.
happy to be here if you need.
No,
When needed, I'm sure everyone.
okay. I think because we still have some other items and Patty asked me to table policies. We're still trying to get some updates with changes in legislation done. So we're gonna hold policies tonight while we're waiting for legislative updates. And then sounds like it's been entertaining in Concord the last couple of days. So I suspect there's probably some more updates coming. Informational.
Yes. Amber ran a preliminary report for your fiscal year update. This is, please understand, a very early number. So Amber typically takes what the current spend has been for the year, which our accounting system gives us, but she has to do a lot of manual work to say, okay, we know we've spent this much, the budget was 20,000, maybe we're only gonna spend 15 of that, or maybe we are gonna spend the whole 20. So she has to carry a lot of line items forward, and she's anticipating right now that you're at around $507,000 in surplus. Very early number, but.
Keep in mind, that this year our surplus is not going back to the town. The wording of warrant article 4 directs fund balance to the trust fund with any shortage being raised from taxation. So up to create that $1 million. So at the moment, we'd be raising $493 taxation. So there's nothing over that. So that's going to cause an interesting dynamic when the tax rates get set.
So I learned a new word this week. That's always fun. It's a Scrivener's error on the ballot. Never heard that before. There was, early on the ballot was okay, and then when it was printed, it had the school board term listed as 1 year. So we have a notice that today the clerk and the moderator signed. We're gonna send it to the town to post, and we're gonna post it on our website. In case a member of the public noticed that it said 1 year, we wanna make sure that they understand by statute, a school board term is 3 years. So whatever is printed on the ballot, it doesn't matter. By statute, a school board term is 3 years. We can't change that just because we printed 1 year on the ballot. So it is a 3-year term, and we will post that notice letting everyone know. It's not required to post it, but we felt like it was important to make sure everybody knows what happened and what the result is. It's signed today and it will go out tomorrow.
That was signed by the clerk and moderator.
Yes. Those were my 2 updates.
Right. So I will look for public comments again, if anybody has any. There's not much public here, but public comments.
I'd like to hear what you say, because it might be the same thing I'm gonna say. Maybe.
Mr. Rhodes,
Yes,
go ahead.
Mr. Lambert. So I have to say I'm a little confused by what I'm hearing. Because I hear Mr. Kelly say that we need to listen and we need to, Ms. Clippa says that we've suffered from compression of time. And yet what you've decided to do is actually rush ahead with multiple plans. And I really do think that what the voters told you was that you haven't heard us. 4-1 is a pretty resounding message that you're not really hearing us. And what I heard this evening, initially it sounded very positive. And we need to, we shouldn't rush into something. And I almost thought I heard you say, Mr. Kelly, we should make time our friend. We should consider what we didn't hear. Ms. Clippa certainly said that in terms of understanding what all the variables are that all could be. And I'd like Mr. Reardon's comment about making it open, open-ended questions in terms of really understanding the elements that fed consent. Okay. And I guess, so I would strongly urge the board to really make time your friend. And I can even go a step further and suggest that you make Deerfield your friend. Currently, every outreach method that I've heard is electronic. A lot of people in Deerfield don't do electronic. They do paper. Okay, so I haven't heard any paper options as being something that you want to think about. Sure, people are going to welcome another mailer from the school board, but I mean, that's how, I mean, people, there are people who vote, who have a view, who don't like the internet necessarily. So I haven't heard them mentioned at all, which is not really surprising to me, because if you look at your websites, all 3 of them, SAU, board, and school, none of them reach the community. None of them face the community. Okay, there's no community facing aspect. And these are people, it's 80% that pays 80%. I mean, this is sort of an obverse of Pareto's optimum, right? You got, so I really think listening portion of this is absolutely critical. That you're not going to do it by April, whatever your dates are, April 6th or June 1 or whatever. You missed this boat. Okay, and you need to listen. You need to make the community your friend. One-way communication is convenient sometimes, but it's not always helpful to you. And I appreciate you taking 2 exceptions to your rule this evening to hear something. But, you know, I think it's a cultural thing that is hard to get out of. And I would urge the board to think about how you can get out of this method of communicating, which is probably pretty good for the school community. Okay, I mean, a lot of people, they all have tablets, and parents are all on various internet methods, okay? But the communities too, you know, you're talking about a third of the community. And I think you heard from the other 2/3 of the community who, I think for the most part, are in fact very sympathetic to the purpose of the school. And are willing to do something. Listen to, if you looked at your deck from your architectural firm, I think it was the second or third from the bottom, was the phrase, inform public. Okay. All 13 other items before that, public wasn't really involved. You invited them, but there wasn't an aggressive means of going out and getting them. There wasn't anything in my mailbox, for instance. Okay, wasn't anything on a lot of ways that you could have reached the community were not exploited. And I think I heard sort of bits of it as I was listening to, you know, really going out and listening. So I think it's going to take a lot more time than 3 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever you allocated to it. I think you'll get a very positive result when you do that, when you listen hard, sift the results. Because I think you're right, Mr. There's a lot of data mining you can do here. But to think that you're going to do it in a short period of time, I think is you're listening a little bit too much to yourselves. You need to listen to the community that spoke pretty loudly to you. And, you know, it sounds negative maybe, but I mean, I come from an education background. I would love for this to be successful. Okay, but you got to do it with everybody with you, not people. And I think people are going to remember this. You know, it's not going to fade away all that quickly. People were scared. People were very scared. Retired doctors were talking about leaving town this past. Okay, people who, you know, not at the old and low income ends of the spectrum. People are perfectly fine end of the spectrum were, you know, disturbed. So I think listening, making time your friend, making Deerfield your friend, would be a really great strategic way to go forward. Might take a little more time. It may not make you may have to wait for the next biennium to get the state funding. But when you get the state funding, guess what? It'll be with a solid plan that the town supports and be real money. And it will show in the application made probably that it has a lot of support and is something the community really wants. And the merit criteria are in the rankings of the biennium monies. But you know, if you do it to get your 61%, you're going to want to have something that's supported by at least 61% of the people. And I think you need to talk to 100% or close to 100%. One thing I didn't hear mentioned this evening was the participation rate on Article 1, 99.8% maybe voted on that. Highest number I've seen for a while, even with 46% of the vote of the voters turning out. That's what people came for. Okay, and they were loud and clear about it. So I think it's worth honoring whatever message it was, but honor it by listening to find out what it is they really meant. And you really have to spend some time doing that. Because if you run with some of these suppositions that I heard this evening, I'm afraid that you won't be successful. And I think your job is to be successful. And your hope is to be successful. And that might start with your websites to sort of include the community. And when I go on your websites, there's no place for me. None. Contact us. Nothing. It's hard to find stuff there. Now, the page on the town site, just to address one of the discussions that you had earlier, it's going to just be in the town's format, I think. I mean, it's a very simple site. You're going to follow their format. There's some boxes you can put stuff in, but by posting your notices, your meetings, your public hearings to that page, not just on your front door or on one of your obscure areas in your site. You have the ability to reach people because people can subscribe to that. I don't know if Mr. Reardon has, you looked on the Civic Plus, I think, and you saw that there's a subscription market in there.
Yep, that's how I get stuff all the
Yeah,
time.
so, you can get stuff, people can get stuff, people know about it. But, that's how you get to people and get people showing up at your meetings, whether it's by Zoom or YouTube or by Channel 29, all of which you can do in the town meeting hall, by the way, if you met there. But, that's how you reach people, is by actually trying to get to them. I would heartily recommend that you do that because I think you'll have a better result if you do that. So I'm trying to be positive. This is not a positive sort of time in the sense of what happened last week, but I think there's a way to make it positive.
Bobby, did you have?
I'm Bobby from Brown Road. Just to kind of piggyback real quick, I agree. And there was like really mixed messages, like we need to go fast, but we did that last time and it really failed us. So I don't really know how I find myself in this position, but a lot of people come to me for just organizing things and just laying things out. Just like Whitmore mentioned, we've seen, it's the sticker, you said it, it's the design is gorgeous. Like obviously, I've been to every single meeting about it. I went to the deliberative session, saw the people that did show up there. The majority of them said it was the price. It's nice to think that we could have those bells and whistles, but it's the price. And like, he mentioned, it's not just the retired people. These are people with two incomes that are going to have to move too. It's people that are working as much as they can for their family. It's like more than half the community was screaming, hey, we're going to have to move. So where are we going to go? But another thing people were really upset about is that there were 4 mailers that we could have taken that money and put it toward the floor in the cafeteria or put it toward whatever you need. Yeah, it's only 10 grand, but
It wasn't that
It
one.
was 10 grand.
yeah, but why 4? So that's what they were asking. And I'm giving you feedback I've heard over and over again. Why 4? Why 4? And also, why wasn't any of the pricing information on the 4? Like, was it facts though? And is that legal that you were sending out mailers with tax money?
So to answer your question, Bobby.
Oh, no, I get.
No, but some of it's right there.
Yeah, okay.
So we are not allowed to electioneer. So we can only
I-
provide factual information. So every single mailer that went out to the public went past the attorneys before it went anywhere else to make sure they were not electioneering, which is why unfortunately they become very bland because you cannot put anything that is not strictly informational on that.
So your community was saying, don't waste your money on 4 mailers. Just send one if it's going to be that vague. And yes, you're thinking, okay, repetitive marketing. I get it. Like hit them over and over again. But it actually backfired on you. And your community said, you're wasting the money you could be spending on the school by doing that. So I'm letting you know what they're saying. I get marketing. I get it, like 100%. And I've talked to some of these people and it is marketing.
If I could real quick, Mr. Rhodes just brought up the fact that not everyone understands on the internet. And the reason for those mailers, so everyone understands, is to reach. We understood it was a $55 million ask of the community. It was critically important that everybody was reached. And short of driving around and knocking everyone's door, that was the best way to say, hey, if you've been under a rock for the last year, here's what we're doing. And this is why. So I understand that plenty of people are on the internet and heard all about it from Facebook, but for all those people that weren't, we felt it was critical to get out there and explain to them.
Had we not sent a
Yeah,
mailer
but
door to door?
those
we would've
4
had people-
mailers had this pretty much the same information. I mean, like, it was like,
Let's,
I'm just saying what the community
Right.
As said, I get marketing, like I totally,
No, and I,
totally get it.
and I understand that, but again, that the misinformation that was coming out, and like, so
Oh,
I'm gonna have a back and forth momentarily, not necessarily with you, but with that thing.
Okay.
Okay, so part of the concern, and this is part of where the board was having to respond to misinformation more so than anything else. So we had people saying, oh, you're electioneering, you're doing this, you're breaking the rules. It's a total load of crap. And there was people in this community that were spreading crap. And they spread a lot of crap. And they did it aggressively. And that, they didn't know,
Block a lot of,
they did it knowing it was wrong. And that is a problem. So the board had an obligation to try to at least make sure, as Jeff said, that everybody in this community that was living under a rock, that wasn't on the internet, or that didn't use Facebook, because the world would be a better place if Facebook didn't exist. But for everybody in this community to at least say, hey, click on a QR code, because most of the world should know how that works. Or you got something in the mail that says, hey, the school's doing something, tune in. This isn't a U-Bobby, so I don't want you to think it's not eating. It's at that thing. So the board had an obligation to at least notify. And yes, marketing 101 is you don't do it once, because the first time it's going to go in the trash. You don't do it twice, because the second time it's going to go in the trash. So you hope one of the 3 or 4 times they look at it long enough to go, the school said they were doing something. Now, the interesting fact is people showed up at the ballot and spent 20 to 30 minutes casting their votes. That tells me that a large number of people that went didn't research it in its entirety. Because I sat down like I do every single time, and I know how I'm voting on every single thing because I've gone through the voters guide, I've been to NBC meetings, I've been to board meetings, I've tuned into the selectmen's meetings. If it takes you more than a couple minutes to vote, my own opinion, and I'll get slaughtered on Facebook for it if I'm not already, is if it takes you more than a couple minutes to vote, you didn't necessarily, you didn't go into the booth fully prepared. And that's my own opinion, but I don't think I'm wrong. So we have to communicate it out to the people. It has to be so neutered and dry and bland. It's the most boring thing in the world to read because we cannot electioneer. I would have loved to have spent some money and put together a multi-page thing and glossed it up and churched it up and made it real nice and made it a marketing thing. But that we can't do. So we're stuck with vanilla. Here are facts. And here is some information to try to steer you to a source. So again, not aimed at you, and I'm not trying to interrupt the citizens' comments, but we as a board have spent the last 2 months listening to people that haven't been involved, haven't shown up, that know we're meeting and discussing it, don't show up and throw rocks from the glass houses. And that is frustrating because they're not serving the community. All they're doing is they're feeding a fire full of misinformation. And that's crap. And those people know who they are.
So my suggestion would be then, if you're gonna send out those mailers, just, I know that's the part where it's like, take your time, like, don't waste. If you know you're gonna get half of it, because they listen to those people, I promise you that your voters are listening to that, even though you might back, it's like a fight. That person who slammed, like or people that do that, I'm telling you, like, maybe don't waste your money on something that you know is very vague in this.
And so what we have.
In my marketing brain, you're actually doing more harm by doing that. Get to the people with the link to give me a survey, right? That's factual information. That is legit. There's a link for you to go and fill out a survey and tell us why you voted one way or the other. But to give out that many, I'm just saying, maybe an idea.
We miss everything we miss all the people that are not on the internet.
No. I'm saying send out a mailer. Don't make it as vague as you did.
We don't
Take
have
the
a choice, but that's what
No,
we're
you
saying.
take the time to.
We did take the time. What we're saying is the reason it looked bland is
If they
because
didn't even have the price on it.
otherwise we would have been said that we were electioneering. There were 4 mailers that went out.
Yes.
$3,600 is what we spent.
And half of them went out after those dates were on there.
So for the record, $3,249. There was a date that did not get removed off the other three. The date on the first one for the informational meeting was on there, and unfortunately, the informational meeting did not get removed off there. At least it was kind of like, well, they had an informational meeting, even if you didn't get to come to it, you saw it was on there, so I felt like.
And originally, those should have all had a chance to get out beforehand, but they spent so much time back and
So
forth.
let's think about what's done is done. I'm
Right.
not saying like,
So,
so you sent out 4 mailers with 2 dates on them. You received, this is kind of what, I'm so sorry, Nate.
It's Nate.
I know, I'm thinking his last name. So you sent out 4 mailers with 2 dates on them, and he mentioned, okay, we're gonna tell everybody, come to talk to us again, and kind of agree with them that you sent out 4 mailers with dates on them, and if you're really gonna connect with people, maybe.
So that would have needed to be another committee. That was not, because otherwise, if we were really gonna market it and say, yes, you need to vote for this, then we would.
Not market, just talk to your community. I think
a big source of frustration, without this turning into a long thing, is the board's ability to outreach as a board is limited because we cannot electioneer. So we have to do it as individuals. Now, that being said, we all went and did what we could do as individuals, but we spent more time fighting a barrage of bull than we did just having frank and honest discussions with the community. Now, when the community showed up, we were able to have frank and honest conversations. That's what I want. And so my perspective, if we just want to go sell this thing, I can sell anything. That's how I make my living, and I've been pretty damn good at it. This isn't something that needs to be sold. It needs to be, information is provided and people can make the decision they want to make. If you want it sold, we'll timeshare it up and we'll sell it. That's fine. But that's not the right approach. So what we need and what people in this community need to do is they need to understand that there is a certain level of participation they have to have with us. And so we want to provide.
You need to have with them.
And you correct, but they still need to participate in the process, because I can't go knock on every single door in town, and neither can the rest of the board members. So we make ourselves available every way we can. But when we say, hey, it's a Saturday, and we put it out, come to the school and just walk around with us, and we're gonna answer questions. And 4 people show up, and 2 of the people were the people throwing rocks, and they came to throw rocks. Right? That is a colossal waste of energy, because
Well, sorry, we got a lot of views
online,
online.
right, which
So
is great.
I think, sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt.
No, but I mean, that's what we're up against, right? So the people that are throwing rocks, come and participate and be part of the conversation. Again, this isn't aimed at you, and I'm looking at you and I apologize. It's at that thing. But the people that are throwing rocks and the people that are making up the stories and telling tales and are telling lies, and the people that are doing that, they need to participate. Now, if you come and you participate and you have an honest conversation and you walk through and you discuss it with us and you still want to vote no, 100% support every single thing you believe. But you have.
That's what I'm kind of saying. I get you.
Right.
I get you.
So-
I block half of, trust me.
So,
But what I'm agreeing is that you need to, if you're gonna send out a mailer, which I do think you should, before the 6th, you can't even do that. Like, it's not logical. You need time. You can't just rush this.
well,
So send out a mailer with the link to the survey, and that's a fact.
Or a location where there's a paper.
Or a paper survey. Yeah,
Amazing.
like
That's what they did with the police.
so
so that there's actual facts on your mailer.
Two
So-
mailers actually undid all the work that you did. There's 2 mailers. First one didn't work. Second one did well. Okay, and that's what I think a lot of people saw.
Yeah.
And so 2 mailers was fine. Now, your conversation, all the rock throwing stuff that
I'm not talking about that.
I know, you're not, but all the rock throwing that does go on, which is not helpful for public discourse, okay? It is out there because there isn't a factual, trusted backdrop of 5 years of building a support base for this, okay? Informing the public at the end, rather than including them, actively, aggressively, paper-wise, meeting-wise, coffee clutches, whatever, from the beginning, that would have, the rock throwing would have been relegated to the sandbox.
Would have been whispers,
It would have been nothing.
because
But
you would have given them the facts.
making time your friend, making Deerfield your friend, would have been a lot more, and you would have learned along the way, I think, the things that you're trying to mine out of the data that you're going to collect, that, we really don't support that, or we really want this, or this is the number we can afford, or whatever fact, they're going to like the communication, whether they tell you or not, they're going to like the communication with you. And that is what's going to build your confidence, their confidence in you, and your appreciation of what they'll vote for. So that's why I'm saying make time your friend. It's absolutely critical, and it will be a factor in your success. Enough of that.
I just wanted to also, because I know we're going late. I agree that, I agree with your sentiment about, sorry, I'm Jackie Trimmer. Agree with your sentiment about make Deerfield your friend, but I just want you all to know that we know that Deerfield is, you are friends with Deerfield. You're trying to do all this for Deerfield, but I think, and I'm not saying you're not saying that, sir. I'm just reminding them. But I think where we need to come in now is the people that are behind this or want to see this evolve into a place that is going to succeed need to step up and do a lot of the things that we're just expecting you all to do as a school board, because you have lives and you have times and you have plenty of other things on your agenda, and like, nobody can expect you to do that. It's not sustainable for you to be on Facebook and combating things. You shouldn't be doing that. So I think I implore the town, I implore everybody that's listening, I implore you to get involved and make suggestions about how can we reach voters that aren't online? How can we,
Just did.
No, I heard you. I guess you keep saying paper, but I'm not, we can talk about it later. I'd like to hear how you guys can utilize people in the town to help your cause. That said, I was not a fan of the design of the mailers that went out, but I understood what they needed to go through to get to that process. I do think that reorganizing how the presentations are presented on the school website would go a long way. I spent a lot of time trying to help people navigate to the right presentation on the school website. The layout is a little confusing, so that's some feedback there. But
Are you volunteering your time to advertise and to help with all these projects?
I am, yep.
Awesome.
So that's my
You should know that.
feedback for you. Thank you. We recognize though that like this cannot be all on you. This is a community school. Everybody keeps saying that. So as much as like you need to be listening, everybody also needs to be helping. So that's what I'd say. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And again, we broke from our normal of, but I'm fine. So it's a whole new school year, or a whole new board year. All right. That being said, I appreciate the public for being here, but we're going to be going into non-public. So per NHRSA 91A3, 2 small letters B and C, look for motion to non-public. Second for second. So we moved and seconded, roll call vote. Andy. Aye. Gigi.
Aye.
Hey, Jeff, sorry. Aye. Hey, yeah, and myself, yes, it is 9:11. And we are going to stay here, so we're going to ask everybody else to leave.
And just for the record for the video, I'm gonna stop the recording. I'm going to put the participants in the lobby. Participants that are going in the lobby, if you would like to stay, I will bring them back into the meeting once we come out. Otherwise, this is the end of the meeting.
Non-public, I'm going to look for a motion to approve the staff request.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? I look for a motion to approve the staff nominations.
Second.
Moved by TG, seconded by Andy, all in favor. All right, and I would look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Now do I stop it, Patty?
Yep, stop recording, and then there's an X to end the meeting.